Debate the top 6 sports stories of the day, and then open it up to you, the Chicago sports fan. Call us at 312-644-6767, or you can tweet your thoughts at Mully Haugh. Pick 6 with Mully and Haugh starts now.
What did you make of Justin Fields sounding like a guy anxious to build off his performance versus Denver, and Luke Getsy saying the offensive production from the game is sustainable? Is that your belief too?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the great mystery going into this game, you're stepping up in class. You're facing a significantly better defensive front than you did. If you can play that way again, then maybe you'll believe, wow, it isn't just because you played the worst defense in the league. Maybe you actually are building off something and producing something. Fields, I don't want to say that he sounded content, but he sounded more confident, maybe. I loved that he got into the whole, I'd rather throw for 25 yards as long as we win. It's all about winning and all that stuff. That was good stuff. And I think he does understand that, and I do believe he believes that. But they lost the damn game. They came across feeling like, okay, here it is. Now we're arriving. When in reality, is it sustainable from week to Thursday? From Sunday to Thursday? That's my question. I'm going to be really interested to see if they can come out and actually achieve anything against a pretty good defense here, especially on the road. So here's hoping. Here's hoping that their confidence is rewarded. I'm not sure what to believe with this team. It took a while to get there, and nice to get it done at home. It was nice to see the fans get to watch Justin Fields put up whatever it was, 335 passing yards. We didn't think that possible. So if he can do that again, okay, you start building on something. But, man, I was surprised at how much they seemed to believe they'd achieved in a loss.
Now, if the Bears were able to have hung on and won that game on Sunday, Monday, I think we would have had a nice celebration. Probably 80% of the calls would have been positive.
Yep.
But by Tuesday, we would have been to the narrative of, remember, that was the Broncos defense. That was a defense where at one point you thought, we joke around about Jimmy Johnson firing players on the field. It looked like at one point that the Broncos head coach was about to fire his defensive coordinator in the middle of a Bears drive. That's how ugly it got. The CBS cameras caught it. So Justin Fields still had to throw the ball. Somebody had to catch the ball. Somebody had to run with the ball after the catch. Those things all happened. So we'll see. Is it sustainable for him to throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns week in and week out? No. No, it's just not sustainable. But I love the fact yesterday that he would rather win than have those stats.
Yes.
Yeah, you expect to hear that, though, right? That's going to be the mantra and the words that come out of every quarterback's mouth in the NFL at any level. The only statistic that really matters is the victory. Look, I'm less concerned about who it came against because I think this offense was at such a low point that if they can complete passes against nobody out there, that's progress. So this was a good step in that direction in terms of the passing game, and you saw some things to build off of. But the sustainability of it, I would like to remind them or everybody, the Bears turned the ball over twice in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And according to the offensive coordinator, the strip sack, fumble, scoop and score, difference-making play of the game was avoidable and was something the quarterback could have anticipated better. Then the interception that cost him a chance at a game-tying field goal was also a miscommunication. So that's not exactly something you want to sustain. You lost the game. Your offense had a big part in losing the game in the fourth quarter. So you build off the positive, but this idea that, you're going to look at this as a positive development, okay, numbers are numbers, but you did lose, and you lost because your offense didn't execute in the fourth quarter. And on 4th and 1, you couldn't get it done. So I hope that it isn't sustainable because I would like to see the Bears sustain drives that end up in victories, not losses.
The other horrible play in the midst of all that was the intentional grounding. That play was a killer play.
Also in the fourth quarter.
Yes, you can't allow that to happen.
I mean, 100%. There's no question about that.
Was it any surprise that Luke Getsy stood by his play call in the shotgun formation of 4th and 1?
Like Flus said the other day, like we liked the call. We didn't obviously execute it necessarily, but we knew how they were going to line up. We had the right call. Justin made the right decision with his decision, and we just didn't get it done.
Any surprise?
It was not the right call because it didn't work. And for him to double down on it, I guess it's not surprising at this stage of their tenure with this coaching staff. And the idea that you can look at that 48 hours later and still try to justify and defend a call that didn't work and defies common sense is just maddening. It's just maddening. You watch the Bears and you get dumber by the quarter. I just don't understand why he continues to insist that everything was blocked right. It was the right call. It didn't work. And for the second time in 2 seasons, in how many games now have they played? 20? 21? You had a 4th and short situation. You came out in the shotgun, and neither time did your precious, game plan, play call result in success. So how in the world are we to buy anything that comes out of your mouth? I like Luke Getsy. I thought he was going to be the great Getsy. But I think that he needs to kind of understand, read the room, for goodness sakes, if nothing else, and don't double down on a play that failed.
Well, and it's also we almost executed it right, kind of, sort of right. He can't say he's wrong. It goes back to my answer the other day with Eberflus. He can't say he was wrong. If he says he's wrong, he loses the room. He absolutely, positively, he doesn't need the media. He needs the players on his side. He doesn't need the media on his side. So this isn't about appeasing the media or appeasing the fans. It would have been more shocking had he said, you know what? We really messed up. We fouled that up. I shouldn't have called that play. That was dumb on my part. That would have been way more damning.
Yeah, I Dustin, when you're taking that stance to players, you don't think they see through it. I don't know. Here's my problem. It wasn't even close. They got stuffed on that play, okay? There was not a moment where you thought, oh, maybe they should measure. Well, they're awful close there. Did he move his hand?
They knew right away. They were like,
yeah, it was like it wasn't even. I mean, it wasn't even. Honestly, it's like they lined up in the shotgun. The refs blew the whistle and just gave the ball the other way. It wasn't there. There was no moment at all. There was no suspense at all about whether they got a first down or they were close to a first down. That thing got blown up, and it was absolute garbage. And whether they thought it was the right play, but somebody didn't execute, and boy, if only this guy had held his block, or if that guy hadn't run around this guy. Look, play power football in that situation. Go up to the line. You know what you should do? Like, as Dave told us, that defensive coordinator was terribly afraid that they were going to jump offside. And the Bears came out and tried to make him jump offside. Then Justin Fields runs to the line of scrimmage, and you could see all these guys sort of lean back, like, I'm not going to be the guy to jump. Tap the center on the rear end, snap the ball, and the two of you go, and you got a first down. It was ridiculous. Instead, you burn a timeout, you come back over, you figure out, well, no one will expect it. They'll think that we're going to run 6 different plays if we line up like this. It was a disaster. It failed. Admit it.
We'd have to wait and see. We have to see where it is. But, yeah, good question.
What do you think of Peter King telling Parkins and Spiegel that Matt Eberflus might be in trouble?
I would not be surprised if it's a bad loss Thursday and the Bears make a change. Just wouldn't be surprising. But I would be surprised if they totally cleaned house and went and got a new general manager as well. It just doesn't seem that logical to me.
Thoughts on that comment from Peter King right here on The Score?
Yeah, I don't think that they are going to, I think that they are separating the coaching from the general manager. And I don't think Like, no one is suggesting, including Peter, that they have a bad loss on Thursday and they fire the GM on Friday. Like, this is about winning in the right now on the field. This is about the coaching. This is about Matt Eberflus, whether he loses the team, if they're coming back from something. They were very close to winning a game. And I as you say, Dustin, I'm sure we'd be complaining about 1,000 different things, but they would have won a game. They have got to win a game. I'm not sure this is the right spot for them, but they desperately need to stop this losing streak. And these teams in the NFL are not that far away from them, the ones that they're playing now in this 7-game stretch. And they've already lost one. So it is hopefully time for them to win and they get more players back. I'm worried about the secondary. I know Eddie Jackson says he's playing at what level, right? I mean, are you ready to play? Are you coming out of the game? The Bears are just in a world of chaos. And I think that things are unraveling around them. And, part of it is this ridiculous texter wants to know why we're still talking about the 4th down play. Because they are. Because every day you hear the same nonsense. They're doubling down on it. But I think they need to win a game pretty desperately. I don't know what happens, but I don't think the general manager gets dragged into it at this point. And I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea what they're going to do, but I don't know that it matters.
Well, I'm not surprised what he said about Eberflus, but I am surprised that he had the general manager in the same sentence. That was surprising. We've had plenty of texters and callers and fans talking about, I'm done, right, with Ryan Poles. They're done with him. But that's the first time I've heard a guy with the credibility of a Peter King say that he might also be on a short leash.
He went back and forth on that. I think he had 2 different ideas about Poles.
So that was taken out of context?
No, not at all. No. I think that he said at one point that Poles would be maybe considered to be moving on, and the other part he thought he would be surprised. I think that the one thing people tend to agree on, and that he's out on the limb on, the coach is in trouble.
Yes.
And for Peter King to say something like that, he's well respected and certainly plugged in. I think that you do pay a little bit closer attention. Here's the thing, guys. I think the wild card in this is Kevin Warren. And we don't know what he's going to think about what's going on. We do know that Kevin Warren, given his experience as Big Ten commissioner, has been part of something where he's changed course publicly and changed course dramatically, historically even, when he reinstated football after canceling the season as Big Ten commissioner. So just because the Bears have never done something before in the midst of the season, during COVID, and just because the Bears never have gotten rid of a head coach, things aren't the same as they ever have been at Haugh, because we have a new president in Kevin Warren. We keep talking about the Kevin Warren impact. I wonder what the impact will be with him in charge now. And I wonder about whether that his alliance with Ryan Poles is stronger than the alliance between Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus. Because if Ryan Poles is going to stay and Kevin Warren is going to have some say and influence over who stays and who goes, then it's going to be the Kevin Warren, Ryan Poles, collaboration that is stronger than the one between the coach and the general manager.
And Dustin, when I listened to that, I heard him saying Poles is staying. You're just surprised they brought his name up? Is that what it is?
Earlier in the conversation, he said Poles might be gone too.
But the cut we just played, it sounds like he's saying Poles is back.
Well, it must have been the cut I played in the pregame show then, where he said that he was.
That's what I'm alluding to.
Right.
The one he played in the pregame show, he said Poles might be in trouble. The one we just played for this question, he said Poles would probably stay.
Can we play that again, just so Dustin can hear it?
I would not be surprised if it's a bad loss Thursday and the Bears make a change. Just wouldn't be surprising. But I would be surprised if they totally cleaned house and went and got a new general manager as well. It just doesn't seem that logical to me.
Right. He's not saying they're cleaning house in that part.
Right.
But earlier, again,
we'll have to come back with that one.
We can go back later on and take a listen if you want.
That's a big question.
That's the voice of Bruce Levine. He'll be here at 8 o'clock. You approve of our guy, Bruce Levine's report that the Cubs have interest in adding Met slugger Pete Alonso via the trade market this offseason. Since Jed Hoyer wants to keep Cody Bellinger, that means both guys, right? You wouldn't want one over the other, not Alonso over Bellinger anyway, right?
I would like both. Thank you. You trade for Pete Alonso, you give up prospects. That's fine with me. They're prospects for a reason. You get Pete Alonso and Cody Bellinger returns via free agency. All of a sudden, you are a team that is serious about winning the NL pennant, and you are a team to be taken seriously, and you are a team that's going to build off this season wherever it ended. I love the idea. I love the rumor. I love the report. I think it was from Jesse Rogers that said Pete Alonso wants to come to Chicago because he wants to market and he wants to play at Wrigley Field. He is a guy that obviously predictable home run hitter. You would love him in the middle of the order. But, I mean, if it's either or, I'm a Bellinger guy. I would rather think Bellinger has more value overall because he plays two elite positions defensively. He's also a guy that looks like he could be regaining the MVP form. Aside from the difficulties in September and certainly when he came back, everything Cody Bellinger did suggests the Cubs should ante up and pay him whatever is necessary to keep him in town. Now, you go out and you get Pete Alonso too? Now we're talking.
Yeah, I mean, that would make a lot of Cub fans super, super excited. You'd have to win a World Series in that window, right? I mean, both of those guys are going to be on contracts that are going to look bad probably the last third of them. You know,
Alonso has one more year left.
Right, but Alonso wants like an 8-year deal. Okay. And I'm assuming that at the very least, Bellinger wants 8 years. And I would be
6 for 180.
I would be excited, but if you said I can only have one, I think I would take the Panda. I think I would take the power hitting first baseman.
Wow.
I think I would. If you said I can only have one, because I think then you could
dig the long ball. You dig the long ball, don't you?
I dig the long ball. They needed more of that. It's the Cubs. The Cubs hit a surprising number of home runs. It was just that a bunch of guys hit in the low 20s. They did hit home runs. They just didn't have anybody who hit like 35 or more home runs. But I think I want Pete Alonso. I think that's the guy. I think that's the guy I want. I'm just not sure. That Cody Bellinger can do this year in and year out. He's on that 1-year prove-it deal. He proved it. It was great. You have to have a bat in the lineup. You can't get rid of Cody Bellinger and not at least replace it with somebody like Pete Alonso.
I'm surprised to hear you say you'd prefer Alonso to Cody Bellinger, because Bellinger does so much more for you defensively as a center fielder and as a really good one.
But I just think you have Pete Crow-Armstrong. You kind of can hide his bat maybe if you bought a pitcher. I'm saying like if you got Alonso's bat and bought a pitcher, you could maybe get away with PCA's lack of offense.
I'm done. No, I'm not. I'm taking a pose. Look, I think the beauty of where the Cubs are at right now is that they've managed this season without a power bat at first base, right? They've managed this season without having a power bat at third base all year long. I mean, they've used Wisdom on occasion, and he'll get you a home run, but they don't have a guy locked in at third base.
At 22.
Or at first base. Yeah, but
I know.
Is he a part-time player or is he a full-time player?
He's a part-time player.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So there's, you could use him. There's value to him if you want to bring him back. I have no problem with that. I'm saying that you need guys that are in your lineup that you know you're going to get a lot out of. And the two power positions, third and first, were not positions they had a power bat in all the time, right? And they had the first base is a wonderful, wonderful place to get a guy that can give you power, and they should do that. And Alonso would be great at that. But if you think about how they managed to get where they're at, it's up the middle of the field. I'd be worried about Yan Gomes. Who's replacing him? How is he going to be able to keep playing like this as he ages? In the fashion, I mean, how old is he now? 37 or something? It's crazy. That guy was a great player for the Cubs this year. I just think they've got to look at the overview. I would do a lot to get Pete Alonso.
And it's not either or. He's got one more year left on his deal.
Yes.
If you make a trade for him, you could figure it out if you want to keep him long term. Cody Bellinger, it just means so much if you're able to retain him, and so much in terms of value at value positions.
Wow, that's a good question.
That's the voice of John Heyman. He'll join us at 6:44 this morning. Were you a little bit disgusted to see the wretched Twins end their 6,397-day stretch of futility and finally win a playoff game, beating the Blue Jays 3-1? Is nothing sacred?
You know, that was my biggest takeaway from the opening round here. I don't want them ever to win a playoff game. I mean, I hope they don't end up winning a playoff series, that's for sure. But it has been a glorious, 9 years since they had won in the playoffs. I guess we shouldn't count this because it is just the wild card round and it doesn't really matter and it doesn't I like it when the Twins lose. I really do. And I was hoping that they would lose, and I was hugely disappointed to see them end that glorious run of futility. Can't stand that team.
Wait a minute. Now it doesn't matter?
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter
round?
because I've got to justify somehow anything they accomplish is absolute garbage.
Okay.
You get it now?
Now I'm getting it. Yeah. I mean, again, I understand where you're coming from. You're rooting against the Twins, Mully, like I'm rooting against the Brewers right now. And
Or
I felt
the Cardinals.
Or the Cardinals, right? But they're not there either, thankfully. I mean,
Brewers
they were
lost.
21
Enjoy
games.
that.
They were 21 games under 500. Yeah. How's Craig Tober going, David?
0-1. What city are we in? I don't care about the Twins.
He's not getting that Mets
I don't
job.
care about the Twins. How long has it been? 6,397 days? I'm going to make 6,398 days that I don't care about the Twins in the postseason. How about that?
How about we all agreed to hell with them?
Okay, I agree with that. I'm going to use my time to point out that, Dustin, I think it's I think you have the right kind of type of animal, but Pete Alonso's nickname is the polar bear, not the panda.
Oh, he's the polar bear. Who was the panda? The panda was
the panda?
The Sandoval, the guy, the third baseman from the Giants. He
I
was
wanted
the
to make
panda.
sure we were, getting our animals straight.
I keep screwing that up.
That's
One
okay.
of many things.
Polar bear.
Add that to the list.
Did you know that a polar bear is like one of the fiercest animals in the world? Like, honestly, there's some saying about what to do with bears, and like if you come across a polar bear, it's just like just die, just go ahead and die because that thing's going to rip you apart.
Flames coming out of his cleats.
Like Pete Alonso.
61-yard pick six for the Jags.
Like he tears apart a fastball. There you go.
Gosh, I wonder how many times you could hit that scoreboard. What do you make of the White Sox firing several coaches, including longtime presence Daryl Boston? How much of that will help restore confidence in the White Sox offseason plan?
I don't know that it's going to restore confidence in the offseason plan because I'm not sure that what the plan is. The only thing we know about the plan for sure is that it includes bringing back the manager who presided over a 101-loss season. I do recall that Daryl Boston was a lightning rod, and his presence in retaining him season after season after season really rankled a lot of White Sox fans, triggered them to the point where if they signed a free agent, if they made something in the name of progress, they were unwilling to be happy about it because Daryl Boston's still there. He seemed to be the most influential first base coach that I could recall. I don't even know if most fans could tell you of their favorite team. Who's the Cubs' first base coach? Who are these guys? Daryl Boston seemed to stand out for being there year after year after year. So I guess his getting launched should be more significant, and maybe it should resonate a little bit louder. I don't know that it does because I still think there's no confidence in the White Sox offseason plan.
Well, to answer your question, Mike Napoli is the first base coach for the.
I know that. Do most people know that though?
Well, I think if you're a fan of a team, yeah, you know who the first base coach is. You know the first base coach more than you might know the linebackers coach.
Okay.
You're more likely to know the linebackers coach of your team or the first base coach.
That's a good comparison.
At least you see the first base coach. Like if you pointed out, if you said that guy right there in the Bears pullover, that's the linebackers coach.
Does either have an effect on the outcome of a game, any given game? How much? Come on.
Well,
I found the saying, and I apologize for not having it at the tip of my tongue. If it's brown, lay down. If it's black, fight back. If it's white, good night.
Listen,
So if you run into a polar bear.
as the only guy in this room, in this studio, that has experience dealing with bears this year, real live bears.
Yeah, you had one attack your vacation
the home in the
house.
Poconos. Yeah, I can tell you, I'm glad it wasn't a polar bear.
David was not scared. He went out and he did about 10 minutes of really funny kind of comedy. It's a Poconos joke. What do you think?
I'm gonna poke you in the nose.
Boy, the Texers are absolutely killing me over the take Alonso over Bellinger idea.
Yeah.
Dustin wants Adam Dunn over Bellinger.
I have to answer the White Sox question. Okay, so that is the pick six, 312-644-6767. It's like the most meaningless thing ever.
Okay.
Fire the manager would be my answer. Do something that I can sit up and take notice of.
You're still upset. You're just upset about the Twins winning.
Yeah, I think that now they're only going to lose 100 games next year.
Okay.
They just saved themselves one loss. Good God. The White Sox. Okay, so we've got the extra point next, and it's a fun one. I'll give you a little hint. It's about getting better. And if you see this bear, you're you'll be laid out. Maybe not. We got a good extra point. We'll be right back with it. Mully and Haugh on the school.
Well, did you give Adam Dunn a mental break, or he just
I did hand 2 bottles of vodka.
Bears fans, after blowing a huge lead to the Broncos, the winless Bears go to the nation's capital to take on the Commanders tomorrow night in D.C. Can they finally get a win this time?
What we always gloss over, what is the actual truth of the NFL that Bill Polian doesn't mention in there, and what Paul Brown calls the eternal verities, the eternal truths about this game? Hustle and speed and the ability to bring force. You know what else is an eternal truth of football? Injuries. Guys are hurt all the time. Constantly. Whether they're on an injury report or not. Whether they tell you about it or not. The ultimate eternal truth is the physical and human toll caused by not being 100%, and they don't want to talk about it. But that's the real eternal truth. And if you're going to give a guy a loaf, or you didn't try hard enough, you know what, coach? My leg hurts. I'm sorry. And I'm busting my ass out there because I'm hurt. And you're going to get in a meeting room, and you're going to stand up there and say, well, Khalil, look at this. You weren't going that hard. I'm in pain, coach. Sorry. You're going to put me up on that scoreboard. You're going to bench my ass. You go ahead and bench my ass. My back hurts. It's the NFL. They're pros. It makes me crazy to say these are objective truths. My ass, they're objective truths. I understand if you want to say, hey, we're going to make this a part of things. We're going to use this as an evaluative tool. But when this is fundamental, when you are so in the church of effort and this principle that guides everything you do, not at this level. An NFL team isn't good because they're not trying hard enough. Or you think an NFL team's not good because maybe they're not good. There's a whole lot of reasons why guys aren't good. And sometimes it's just, it boils it down to the most simplistic things. This is how I felt about Jim Boylan's punch clock. It sounds like Jim Boylan's punch clock. This is a car factory, and we're going to pretend this is a car factory, and you're going to show up to work, and this is when you come to work.
No, I'm not surprised. Yes, it does underscore the desperation. They don't have depth. So if you have somebody who's done the job before and you value preseason as little as this regime, frankly, the NFL values preseason, then let them play. You only have 17 opportunities any given year to play a game that matters. So if Tevin Jenkins already has missed 4, I think you see what you've got. You know how he's going to respond to the increase in intensity, and the only thing you're concerned about is conditioning. So keep an eye on him. Let you have a rotation in mind. Maybe 2 series, take one off. 2 more, take one off. Maybe take. You don't want to get in the habit of rotating offensive linemen, but this is a situation where you're trying to ramp up. Dare I say it? Ramp up Tevin Jenkins to get him to the point where he can produce for you. You've got to change something. It's not as if your offensive line is performing at such a high level. It's like, what will happen if we disrupt this rhythm? Oh my gosh. No, it's not working. You're not really protecting. You're running the ball okay. You're coming off a very good offensive production game against the Broncos, but it was the Broncos up front, and they don't have the best defensive line. It's a real challenge. Step up in class Thursday night. You're going to need everybody that you can get on the offensive line and be as physical as you can be. Tevin Jenkins makes you more physical. Play him.
Play him. He makes you more physical. I don't, David, I hate, though, the idea of having to rotate guys in, because I think if here's the other question. If Tevin Jenkins can play, does that mean that Cody Whitehair is playing center on Thursday night?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just say, so now the point is now who's coming in as the backup to Tevin Jenkins? Who's the rotation?
Probably Ja'Tari Carter, right?
I guess I could live with that. I guess at that point, I'm hoping that the Bears might be done with the fraudulent center guard from the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I Lucas Patrick, I don't want to diss him.
You have been, though.
But I thought he played okay. I think he's been okay. But I think your point is well taken, Dustin. Would the Bears have tried to play power football if Cody Whitehair were under center and they felt they could get a yard on a 4th and 1? I just wonder if that played into it in any way. I think this is desperation, and I think it's desperate times call for desperate measures. And I think that Tevin Jenkins improves them if he's able to play. And if he is, he had calf injuries. I wonder what kind, you heard from people that he was doing a lot of work and that he was getting ready to come off the injured list. And he looked like he was getting stuff done around campus. So that's good to hear. If they use him, then that tells you they're fairly desperate. And they're already trying to hide Larry Borum because they're down a left tackle and they're using their tight end to help out with that. And I think he was called for a penalty during that
Mercedes
game.
Lewis was,
Mercedes
yes.
Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's working hard to try to help them get through this with a guy down. Having said that, if Tevin Jenkins, if you tell me that he's coming back and he's going to hold up for the whole game, I think he needs time. He needs to play. And the only way at this point that you're going to get him any real reps is in games, sadly. So if they can get him in the lineup, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be absolutely great. Again, that's provided he doesn't get injured, because he's not in shape and conditioning is an issue. So I hope the fact that you leave that door open implies, well, first of all, it says that he's going to start against the Vikings when you get back from this game. But here's hoping that they can get to it quickly.
Yeah, I think he can help, especially against a Commander's defensive line that is
step up.
It has the potential of dominating this football game, and you don't want to go in there shorthanded. So I think what's the corresponding roster move? Doesn't matter. You've lost 14 games in a row. You want to have all hands on deck when it comes to your offensive line. And if you have it, it's an unorthodox rotation.
Yeah.
But Cody Whitehair could be. You don't see teams typically changing centers
in a game,
in the midst of a game.
Yeah.
But I also don't know that you've seen the Bears, lose 15 games in a row before. So I don't know that. I don't know that you would rule anything out at this stage. The other move which could be interesting to keep an eye on in terms of the roster and who's going to play Thursday night and who could be a name that we haven't seen or a player this year. The Bears signed a veteran safety from the Ravens practice squad.
Yes.
Duron Harmon, and he's now had 11 years in the NFL. He played 76 starts, I think. He played a long time for the Patriots, has bounced around since then. But that tells me that a guy with that much experience in this defense could step in pretty quickly, I would think. Would that shock you if you saw him, if Eddie Jackson doesn't play, and he hasn't practiced? So I really would be skeptical of him playing. I don't think that those two things are comparable. Tevin Jenkins and Eddie Jackson. Tevin Jenkins, different role.
Yeah.
Eddie Jackson, coming off that injury with the same foot now injured, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Harmon Thursday night.
I wouldn't be surprised either, David. I think that they're getting fairly desperate. And I think that they've had a lot of guys out of the secondary for a lot of time. And, when you're talking about being on your third nickel, that basically means you don't have a nickel. No offense to anyone. But by the time you get to the third at anything, it is really hard for a team to they signed the kid, what was it, Juwan Williams from Minnesota. They are trying to add to this secondary because that tells me they don't know who's coming back when.
They're poaching players off practice squads. I love that term, and it's what they're having to do the last couple of weeks as it pertains to the secondary. Also, you don't want to get in the habit of what the Bears have been doing. Jack Sanborn played a lot more snaps on Sunday because they stayed with their base defense.
Yes.
That also exposes them maybe in the passing game because you don't have an extra defensive back that you trust to put in nickel in those situations.
These guys have some good weapons on their offense. They've got some receivers that can catch the ball, that can eat you up.
And Sam Howell is underrated. I mean, I think that he could go either way, but Ron Rivera believes in him for a reason, and he's a guy that has had a little bit of success, so I would not underestimate him either.
All right, 312-644-6767. We'll be back with your calls. It's Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio, 670 The Score.
Before the Chicago-Washington game tomorrow, turn on the Score for the PNC Bank pregame show starting at 6 p.m. with Chicago football legend Olin Kreutz and Ironman long snapper Patrick Manley, along with Mully from the Mully and Haugh Show on Sports Radio 670 The Score. Always live on the free.
This is from Stonecutter, who said, you have to fire Eberflus Friday morning. You have to. You cannot put this idiot up at the podium for another 13 games. Make Hightower the head coach and let Borgonzi or Hoke call the defense. This cannot continue. That was my point yesterday. He's done. Whether they act or not, that's what it sounds like. This is what it looks like. He is absolute powdered toast man right now. He is donezo. They weren't listening to him before the game. Can you imagine hearing that in the locker room? Be like, oh, well, go get him. Hits principal. I mean, he's just gibbering up there. He's got nothing. He's been totally exposed. Defensive head coach with his magic defense and his principles and his discipline. Your discipline? You get 10 penalties. You got a wide receiver who doesn't. You have to tell not to come to the building, and we still don't know what happened with your hand-picked defensive coordinator and what these inappropriate things that he did that forced him to resign. The hell is going on up there? This guy's totally overwhelmed. Right? That's what you do, right? You evaluate, and that's it. There with that. And we don't have here's injury updates. Here's my injury updates. Don't have any injury updates. But so that concludes the injury updates. And now I'll take your questions. And now Jason Leisure is going to sit me down and smack me in the face repeatedly. So go ahead.
Losing his mind.
I mean, this is a clown
and
show.
We're reaping all the benefits.
Go Sports Radio 670 The Score. Always a delight to talk to our friend John Heyman, and he joins us as all guests do on the Score Hotline, powered by IBEW Local 9. Chicago's original powerhouse since 1892. John, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
You know, we kind of lost our baseball teams here along the way. The Cubs.
Sorry.
I liked the way Jed Hoyer handled it yesterday. He was like, yeah, when you don't achieve your goals, it's not a successful season. So he wasn't afraid to go there. And a lot of people have been kind of, even us, you don't want to upset the fans by saying, that was awful at the end. But it was pretty awful at the end, losing 5 of the last 6 games and 15 of 21.
Yeah, I would agree. It was awful at the end. Yeah, I think Jed Hoyer said the right thing. It certainly was not a success. It wasn't an absolute failure, but I mean, at the end it was. Certainly they needed to do better in those last few series. Obviously, the Braves are a tough team. They were already in, though. Give the Braves credit for playing it out. And then, of course, Milwaukee did not want to do the Cubs any favors, and the Cubs played like they needed some favors there at the end. They just did not do well. Bullpen did not do the job, and, they got a little work to do.
Jed said the right things about wanting to retain Cody Bellinger, and then the focus shifted on who else could join him, possibly if he does stay in Chicago. I know David Stearns was introduced this week as the Mets' new president, and he talked about wanting to keep Pete Alonso as a Met for the foreseeable future. Rumors in Chicago, John, are that Pete Alonso might be there for the Cubs to pursue in a trade. What's the future hold for Pete Alonso in your mind?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that the Cubs would pursue him again as they did at the deadline. I take David Stearns at his word that he expects him to be the first baseman. That doesn't guarantee anything, certainly leaves some wiggle room. But, he's just starting now. I understand that, he does what he thinks is right and doesn't necessarily, at least hasn't in the past, put big stock in, what the players think. Obviously, the one mistake he probably made, he did a great job in Milwaukee making the playoffs. 4 straight years, Mets have never made the playoffs more than 2 straight, so that's pretty good. The one mistake was trading Josh Hader and upsetting the clubhouse. I don't think he'll take that kind of chance in his first year as the Mets baseball honcho and trade Pete Alonso, because the reaction in the clubhouse, frankly, would be similar to what the Hader trade was in Milwaukee. He has value beyond all those home runs, which are a lot of home runs with the Mets. And, I think if they aren't able to get a long-term deal done now, which I think it's going to be difficult because he's only a year from free agency, I think they will play it out just like the Yankees did with Judge and try to sign him as a free agent. I just think trading him brings too many risks for the Mets, so I don't believe that they'll do that.
John, any surprises for you yesterday? The Diamondbacks coming back to beat the Brewers, and obviously the disaster of the Twins somehow winning a game. I thought we had agreed that wasn't going to happen in the playoffs. Anyone surprise you?
Yeah, no, I'm not that shocked by the Twins finally winning at home. The Brewers, they had the pitching matchup with Corbin Burns versus the rookie Fought, and you would expect them to win that game. There's pressure on the Brewers now. I mean, obviously they've gotten the playoffs a lot. They have not done a good job advancing in the playoffs for whatever reason. Oftentimes it's been a big market team like the Dodgers eliminating them. I mean, I know Phoenix is a big market, but that's not a big revenue team, and Brewers, I think, were pretty strong favorites in that series. So losing that game, and now they're in a little bit of trouble with Arizona's one. I mean, they have a few great strengths, obviously, Corbin Carroll and Marte, but one of their big strengths is 1-2 pitching combination of Gallen and Merrill Kelly. I think the Brewers are in trouble right now, and that to me was a surprise.
I agree with that. That is a big concern in Milwaukee, and then you wonder, you go ahead and like Craig Counsell is going to be a free agent, and that dovetails with what we talked about earlier. David Stearns again. You wonder by the end of the week where that story could be headed. A lot of managerial moves and speculation, John. Craig Counsell could be on the move if they get eliminated early. You wonder what's going on in San Francisco. Bob Melvin also the subject of some speculation. Who's next to go, and what do you think about the Counsell situation?
Yeah, I mean, you would think logically that Milwaukee should be able to retain counsel. I believe he is, if not the only manager who lives year-round in the town in which he manages, one of the few. He is a Milwaukee product. His two daughters still go to Whitefish Bay High School there in suburban Milwaukee, and his kids are on the Midwestern part of the Big Ten, University of Minnesota, University of Michigan playing. So you wouldn't think he would leave for a couple extra million, but, he did defer the contract negotiations that the Brewers owner, Mark Nazier, tried to begin in spring training, and I'm sure he does think he's underpaid. He makes 42% less than the high-salaried baseball managers, the Bruce Bochy's of the world, who are making $6 million. He's at $3.5 million. He was a big union guy. Maybe he would like to reunite with David Stearns. Maybe he does feel there's a better chance to win a World Series as a manager. He did win 2 World Series as a player, one in Arizona and one in Miami. Maybe he will go to the Mets. To me, even if you get a $1 million raise, it can go to New York. Is that really a raise? I mean, have you seen the prices in New York compared to Milwaukee? I mean, they're going to have to pay him $8 million probably. And, at some point, is it worth it? I mean, he's obviously an outstanding manager. It's important. It's a very tough job in New York. It's easy for me to say it's not my money. I don't make anything like that. But, can Greg Counsell, will he really want to leave for a couple extra million? We'll see. It's possible. That those are the two options. To me, it's the Mets or the Brewers for Counsell.
I'm curious, John, what were your picks? Who do you have in the World Series? Did you change your picks coming into the playoffs? Yeah.
No, I got to change them. I had the Padres and the Angels. I wanted something convenient for me. So, I'm going to go with my convenience again and go with the Orioles and the Phillies. So
nice.
I like it close. We'll see. I think those two teams are looking really good right now. So obviously the Braves and the Dodgers are the favorites at this point, which is interesting that the National League has some of the best teams when the American League seems to always win the All-Star game, but I'm going now Phillies-Orioles as I am forced to change my pick.
John, what is it about the Dodgers you think people doubt? Because they, on paper, you look at, they should be the prohibitive favorite, or maybe them or the Braves, but it seems like there's always something about the Dodgers in October that people question.
Well, I don't think it's that they've only won one World Series since 1988, winning in that pandemic year, which I don't take that away from them. That's just as like winning any other World Series. It was a gauntlet to win that. And they're always in the playoffs, so they would have gotten the playoffs anyway, even if they played the full season. It's the pitching right now, the situation that they're in. Kershaw reportedly not at full strength, and he's the only guy left from the original rotation, right? They don't have Urias, which is a huge loss. Don't have Gonsolin, don't have May, don't have Buehler. They're going to really have to piece it together. We had Dave Roberts on our podcast, the New York Post podcast that we did, and he admitted they're going to have to piece it together. They've got rookies Miller and Pepio, and obviously you guys know about Lance Lynn, who's done better there, but, still, not a top pitcher at this stage of his career, obviously serviceable, particularly with that offense. So I think it's the fact they're going to really have to piece together the pitching that makes it difficult for the Dodgers.
John, you're the best. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, John.
All right. Good luck with the football. Hopefully that turns out a little better.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
That's a rough one, buddy. We were trying to get a respite from that, but I'd be curious what John thought of that 4th and 1. Never mind. We've got your calls coming up next. 312-644-6767. It's Mully and Haugh on The Score.
Listen up, sports fans. The Circa Sports Illinois mobile app is officially live in Illinois. If you download the app, you can bet and fund from anywhere in Illinois. And to celebrate,
we decided that we are going to be, we've been given basically 5 minutes with Matt Eberflus to ask him any questions that he wants. And so
this is exciting.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon,
Matt.
Matt. It's good to have you on the Circa Resort and Casino Hotline. Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, home of the world's largest sports book. I've also been told that Matt has promised to answer all of these questions 100% truthfully,
Oh boy,
which is exciting. So yeah, Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Really nice day today. Really nice. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Is your confidence shaken at all, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it, because it seems like are you unsure of yourself during these press conferences?
Meaning what?
Meaning, do you know what you're saying when your mouth is moving and you're saying words?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Matt, is this job too much for you?
What's that?
What I'm trying to say is all the duties that you have to do as a head coach, and now you're defensive coordinator. Is it too much for you?
Yeah.
It does seem like
again,
that
he's being honest. So your confidence is shaken.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a big admission. That's going to make a lot of news here.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Have you met Kevin Warren, Matt?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. So you don't even know who that is, right? Kevin Warren? You're not familiar with him? Yeah, Kevin Warren. He's the president. He's Ryan Poles' boss. He's your boss.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have family dinner, 5:30 to 6:30.
Family dinner. So you've broken bread with Kevin Warren.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Was that a Rosemary, by the way?
Yeah, he goes there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a lovely place.
It's fantastic.
Did you see our guy Shane Reardon there? Was he there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, he usually is.
That was one of the nights that he wasn't there.
All right. Well, I'm good.
All right. Well, you got yeah.
Meaning what?
I'm fine. I'm done asking questions.
No.
Okay. That's honest Matt Eberflus with us on the Circa Resort and Casino Hotline.
It's amazing that he was willing to do it. It really was. Like on a day when he already talked twice, as you mentioned, he still needed to get some more in.
Yeah. Do you feel like we have any more clarity at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
can't lose 14. I don't care who's playing for you. You cannot lose 14 games in a row and think you should hold on to your job. I would not be surprised if it's a bad loss Thursday and the Bears make a change. Just wouldn't be surprising.
Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 of the score. That is Peter King, NFL writer extraordinaire, and he was on with Spiegel, with Parkins and Spiegel, and it was interesting to hear that take from him. I'm not arguing. The Bears have lost a lot, and we're closing in on a year of losing. And, you lose a game like that last week, you do get some takeaways from that game. I think the biggest takeaway for me would be feed the ball to DJ Moore. Throw the ball up and let him go get it. Make sure that you use that guy as much as you did. And I just wonder if the Bears are going to have time to do that against a team like Washington with a pretty impressive defensive front.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge, certainly blocking that defensive front and protecting Justin Fields. I am a little surprised that we are at the point we're at. I am a little surprised that somebody like Peter King, who has respect and context, is framing this Thursday night game in this way, which is essentially the takeaway from that conversation, and I'm not questioning it. I'm being honest about my reaction to it. Matt Eberflus is coaching for his job Thursday night. If you believe what Peter King is saying, is that no coach, regardless of the circumstances or the contract or the commitment level from the organization, what had been said prior to this, no coach can really feel comfortable waking up Friday morning after 15 straight losses. And I get that, but I wonder how they would approach that from a Bears front office and ownership perspective. And I wonder what would compel them to do something they've never done historically, and also what would be the alternative? Well,
that's the question to me. It's not, if they fire him, they fire him. There's a lot that's gone wrong, David, including that Alan Williams stuff and him then kind of taking on those duties. All of it looks bad.
It all looks bad because 15 losses and the dysfunction off the field. Yes.
So I could see that happening. And you're right. Who cares if they've never done it before? If they've never been in a situation where they've lost 15 games before. That's
it. That's the historical precedent that you don't ever want to set, is that you now have a longest losing streak in team history. It's been, we're 20 days away from a calendar year between victories since the last Bears victory over the Patriots. And so I understand why people would not jump to this conclusion, but reach this conclusion. This has been a gradual descent, and all bets are off in the NFL if you can't win a game in one calendar year. But Mully, I just don't know, and I'm not defending or justifying keeping him because I understand the way it works. What would you do if you were Kevin Warren, or what would you do if you're Ryan Poles, who's allowed to stay, and for how long? Right. So I think that this week, or maybe they've already had these conversations, if you're prepared to do something like this or even considering it, what does it mean for the general manager? What does it mean for any interim coach that you might be approaching or considering? I just wonder what kind of conversations are being had between George McCaskey and Kevin Warren, who both, by the way, were spotted in the Bears locker room after Sunday's disaster.
Well, I would imagine, David, if they were actually thinking about making this move, I would think the coach would be forewarned. I think they would tell him, hey, you're going to have to start winning around here, and it's got to start now. This is the problem with all of it. The problem is it's two separate seasons, right? So you traded away a bunch of assets at the trade deadline. You haven't won since Roquan Smith was on the team, and the general manager is as responsible for the position they found themselves in last year as the head coach. So I don't know if it's fair to count those 10 games against them when they were clearly trying to lose out and get a draft pick. I just don't know if that is. I don't know if the 10 losses at the end of last year should be put directly on the head coach. I'm willing to listen to the argument for that. But you open the season, you tried to get a little bit better. You did some things. Unfortunately, they weren't prepared for the start of the season. You can blame that on the head coach. You can blame that on injuries and players not having personal issues, whatever it might be in terms of Nate Davis. We know he lost his mom, and he played well, by the way, when he finally got on the field last week. So I just don't know how much I blame Eberflus alone for that, but 5 in a row, we talked about it.
Well, I understand
3
that.
is a limit, right?
And the lack of preparation is troubling, and the kind of dysfunctional culture is also troubling. And I don't, frankly, know how you would distinguish between Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles.
Right.
You could if you're making the argument you want to keep your general manager and you are a big fan of him for whatever reason. I think you could probably justify keeping one and launching another.
No doubt.
But I felt like since day one, since the press conference, the shared agent, all of the things that they were in lockstep together, philosophically and otherwise. And I think that they're probably aligned contractually as well. So I do want to know, they're going to have to explain a lot of things if they do reach this conclusion where they lose a game on Thursday night. And if they do, as Peter King suggested, fire Matt Eberflus over the weekend or before they play again, I want to know what the justification was in keeping the general manager and getting rid of the head coach, because can you make the argument that he's done a better job? I don't know that you could.
No, but I think you can make the argument that the head coach has a more direct impact on wins and losses at this point than the general manager would. And that at this point, it is about trying to stem the tide if indeed you're talking about 5 straight losses.
You could make that argument. I'm not sure how strong it is. You could make the argument because, Mully, I think that when you look at we don't need to rehash what's happened since Ryan Poles took over, but the players that have walked out of Haugh, how does that compare with the talent that's come into it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's so one of these things, if you're willing to make a change, where are you going to stop? Well, all this I think pertains to something else we don't know. What does Kevin Warren think about the people that work for him? We don't know. We have a sense of how he feels very confident in Ryan Poles, and he's talked about what he sees in him as a young leader and executive. We probably know less about what he feels about the head coach because that's not necessarily somebody that directly reports to him. But the wild card in this is the new team president that we have, celebrated since his arrival, said it's going to be a new day at Haugh. All these things are going to be changed and different about the organization. What does he think about what the right step is next?
And frankly, David, there are a lot of other issues that are connected to that. So, for instance, if you're moving on from the coach, are you moving on from the cover 2? Are you moving on from his system? Do you have anybody in mind other than kind of a caretaker guy to get you through the end of the year? If you're moving on from the head coach, how does that impact what you want your offense to look like? Are you moving on beyond the head coach? Is it just one guy? And are you going to keep his staff together, maybe bring in a guy or two at the top? I think there's, the philosophy of the team, the methodology of how you're going to go about it. If you're keeping the general manager, he's got assets that he's built up. Are you letting him get those and then see where you're at before you make a decision on him? One of the real horror stories in Bears history has to be that and I'm not dissing anybody here, but they decided that COVID had been, this kind of problem for them building their team. So they allowed the general manager to stay on, the general manager and the head coach to stay on a year and go out and make a pick at the quarterback position. That made zero sense. If you are moving on from an administration and they fired them all the next year. Why let him go get a quarterback and trade up for him and give up, the assets it takes? I'm just saying.
You're talking about alignment. You want organizational alignment. And ideally you are aligned with your general manager and head coach, which I think the Bears have right now. But in typical Bears fashion, and maybe it's not the Bears, but it seems like it always affects the Bears. They're not aligned with the quarterback. They did not draft Justin Fields. So that you always have wondered about the level of commitment to him. I think they probably would feel more comfortable praising him before this season. We've always talked about what Ryan Poles hasn't said about Justin Fields, which says as much as what he has. Would be different if they drafted him. I really believe that. You look at guys, you try to find traits, and there's a lot to you tend to find it easier to praise guys that you draft because you fell in love with them during the pre-draft process. That's not the case here. So if the Bears, give up on Justin Fields, or if they fire Matt Eberflus and stay committed to Ryan Poles, what does that mean about their commitment to Justin Fields moving forward? I think that'll be determined by how well Justin Fields plays. But how well is he going to play on a team that, is this bad?
Let's try Rick. Rick is in Evanston. Hi, Rick.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Good.
Quick question. When they lost that game, and before the presser started, if Eberflus would have came to the podium and said, hey, before we get started, this game is on coaching, will we be going this crazy about it? I'm going to hang up and listen to my answer.
Yeah, I think so. I think that just because you agree with him doesn't mean you would absolve him from the mistakes that were made along the way. It just might have been a little bit simpler in terms of communicating the message. But, yeah, I don't think it would have changed much. Maybe you had a little more respect or sympathy for him, but I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, it's funny. The Gridiron Assassin checks in and points out that Chuck Noll lost 16 in a row his first two seasons with the Steelers, and then obviously went on to be Chuck Noll. And he's not saying Eberflus is Chuck Noll, but it is not unusual to struggle in a regime when you're changing everything and you're trading everyone.
I mean, come on. It's a great historical reference, and I think that's a really interesting nugget in Chuck Noll's personal biography. But are you seeing signs of progress here? The problem with what's going on here isn't just the losing. It's the way that they have lost. They were unprepared against the Packers to start the season.
Yes.
They had a defensive coordinator who was the head coach's guy leave under mysterious circumstances that have yet to be explained.
Chaos.
And you had what happened on Sunday that leaves an indelible mark on any coach, regardless of the direction you think that this is headed.
And I'm not arguing any of that. But what happened on Sunday was you had a guy that stood up there and said, we're close. I can feel it. We're close. And then they came out and they nearly won a game. They should have won the game. The fact that they couldn't win the game is the problem he has, that it kind of underscores that they've lost so much that they don't know how to win, that they are manufacturing a culture of losing by pulling a loss out of the depths of a win.
You know how you learn how to win? You kick the field goal, you take a lead in the fourth quarter, and you protect it.
So you can blame him for that and all the rest. Now, if they win this Thursday, then you feel like they are turning a corner and they look completely different.
It's a reprieve, temporary.
It's a reprieve. It's
not,
not,
and I think that's the way you look at it. And so I think he might be coaching for his job.
But if he loses, and we suspect he will, they're 6.5-point dogs on the road, right? Our friends at Circa said 7 points. You know, when you get to 7, that's like a magic number, right? What do you?
But
say?
now it's 5.5.
5.5.
Now it's 5.5.
That's crazy. That's a big move.
When you have somebody like Peter King that says what he said, he does not make a living and has not earned his reputation by wildly speculating on the future of head coaches. He doesn't recklessly say these things. They're measured, they're reported, and they're sourced. So I don't think you want to dismiss this possibility, which leaves me believing that he's coaching for his job tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not dismissing the possibility at all. I'm just saying, as much as we're down the road on this, is there any way like let's say they go into overtime and lose a close game. Is that still mean he's gone, or are they going to give him that Vikings game where you probably could win?
I think that's probably a good distinction to make. You're right. I mean, it may be how you lose. You have to avoid embarrassment, and that's a low bar to clear. But it's not one the Bears have done very often this year already.
I totally agree
That's
with you.
That's crazy.
Listen, this has been a disaster. And as you say, losing the defensive coordinator, that kind of chaos, that is something that the organization thought they were beyond. And to have that happen again, that I think that's the spot where you may have lost George, who was just giving a rubber stamp to these guys and happy to go on with it. But you end up looking like it's the Matt Trestman era, whether that's accurate or not.
And you have to remember this, too, and this is something else Peter mentioned, but it's an obvious thing out there. There are 13 games left.
Oh, my God.
There are 3 months to this season. Yeah. And when we reference the precedent in something like this, and you look at last year, the Colts firing Frank Reich and installing Jeff Saturday as the interim, that was in November. Okay, they were 3-5-1.
Yeah.
So that was mid-season. We're not even there yet. We're a quarter way through this season.
We're not even a quarter of.
So
we got to wait for the first.
So the fireman that's the first quarter.
You
get out. You get out. You're gonna fly commercial home.
It's a great point, David. It's a
lot of football left.
There's a lot of football left, but there's not a lot of hope.
Not a lot of hope, but you're talking about seasons in players' lives and careers that still matter.
You only get so many.
Yes.
You know, and honestly, there's only so many sunsets for everyone. Yeah, I think that there's got to be an urgency given the point of the season you're at and the way you've played.
And I think
it wouldn't stun me. I think that I don't know that it's a fait accompli is what I'm saying.
I don't think it is, and I'm curious to looking forward to talking to Dan Wiederer because he has been up there, and he is at, like a lot of people who have been covering this team, at his wit's end.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's another season that has begun, and 13 games left to him seems like an eternity to cover this team.
All right, we're going to bring in Dan next. We'll talk to him about this, and we'll get back to your calls. It's Mully and Haugh. It's Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 The Score.
Directly after the Chicago-Washington Thursday Nighter, turn off the TV and turn on The Score for the Great Clips postgame show starring Chicago football legend Olin Kreutz.
I mean, the play calling and the player execution was outstanding. As good as you're going to see all year long.
Stefanski's awfully good.
Absolutely. And the players were tuned into it. Oh, man, what do we got? I see light mango. Come on.
I did bring in.
They're not making this in Pittsburgh. I got to see where this is.
Oh, you bet.
It is Pittsburgh, Iron City. You know what? I'm going to text the president of Iron City Beer as soon as I leave here.
Text him right now.
Text him right now.
Call him right now.
And I'm going to see if Tony see if he's with.
Yeah, you text him right now because there is a bottle of red that I brought.
He's not the president, but he's got a lot of clout.
Dave loves Iron City Light. He likes it over ice. It's his Pittsburgh beer of choice. He doesn't like fruit beers. He didn't know there was an Icy Light mango, and he's now disgusted.
Don't worry, Coach. We got that right at the Giant Eagle in the flats.
Oh, on the flats. I love it. The South Side. I love it. The flats. Perfect. Should I call Tony and see if he answers?
Well, you're not on your cell phone, Dave. We won't be able to hear him.
Won't be able to patch him in. You'll be here, put on speakerphone right by the mic.
All right,
That's no problem.
Fine. Yeah,
give it a shot.
Call Tony.
I got him on speaker. Let me just see if Tony answers.
But the person you called has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet.
That's a voicemail.
All right. So, Dave,
I'm going to text him and see if he gets back, and then I'll get him to call me.
All right, good. Because you're appalled by this, right? This is an Iron City Light with fruit in it, and you like it straight up over ice.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right.
Go ahead. Keep talking. I can text and talk.
Can you? Yeah.
Dave's reaching for a paper towel. He's off the mic.
Forget about his football point for a second. This is his beer from his childhood. He's been drinking this since the coal mines in like 6th grade. He's told the story 1,000 times. Have a sip of your beloved Icy Light with mango in it, and I want you to tell me if you're disgusted by a little fruit in your beer.
Yes. Okay. I got to find out who recommended this. Honest to God, I mean, we're talking about Pittsburgh.
I know.
Right?
know.
We're talking
I know.
about the Steel City.
I know.
You're appalled.
What kind of metal forging could you do when you drink a couple of these? Huh?
I wonder if I went into Yarsky's bar on the south side after I worked night shift at J&L Steel when I was going to Pitt, and I walked in there and I said, "Can I have an IC Light Mango?" when the bar is 7 deep with steel workers, you can't even see their eyes. Everybody's got the soot on them.
Right.
They got the hard hats backwards.
Yeah.
What do you think? No, better. I'll yell it from the back of the bar.
Yeah.
Hey, Danny, you got an IC Light Mango there?
Yeah.
You're not coming out alive.
Right.
There's no way. Your ass is kicked 3 times before the front door.
And fired.
Yeah,
And fired.
And fired. Yeah, you can't go back to those mills ever again. Why would you want to?
Mango?
Credentials, you got a guy with some qualifications, and now there's just, when done at its best, provides a level of steadiness and stability that helps create and stimulate success.
On-air contributor for 670 The Score.
Listen, we're not going to accept the status quo. We are going to push for more. We are going to strive for more.
Co-host of the Take the North podcast with our own David Haugh.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
Dan Wiederer with Mully and Haugh on 670 The Score.
Bear down. Let's go.
Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Dan Wiederer joins us on the Score Hotline, powered by IBEW Local 9, Chicago's original powerhouse since 1892. Dan, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys this morning?
Well, we're discussing the Bears, the future, the game, the end of careers, the horrors of the reality of this wretched season. Did you hear Peter King on with the boys yesterday? And he said that basically he thinks that if they don't win this game, that Flusy could be gone on Friday. And I kind of think it's interesting that we're talking about a certain amount of urgency for the Bears because they haven't won in so long. I'm not sure I can hang all 10 of the losses in a row last year on the coach, but I certainly can understand how the start to this season has been a huge disappointment. And we know the Bears, haven't ever fired a coach in season. They've never been through a 15 consecutive losses. So conceivably, one precedent could lead to another.
Look, like you're looking for direction at some point from this football team. And the lack of direction through the first month of the regular season has been jarring. There's been so many things that have gone sideways and gone sideways more than most teams have things go sideways that it just makes you stop and consider all options. Now, I've talked with David before about you have to play this forward. You're already down a defensive coordinator. If you fire the head coach, you have to fill all these roles with people that are presumably inside your building or do what the Colts did last year and do something completely sideways and out of left field and bring someone in that hasn't touched the building in a while. So I don't know what you would do if you launched Matt Eberflus, who would assume defensive coordinator responsibilities, who would oversee the team. How would you get this in a position where you wouldn't create further embarrassment for the next 3+ months of the season? But look, like they're in an ugly place right now. You used the word wretched just a minute ago. I can't dispute that word because my God, it's October 4th and the level of conversation that we're having about this football team isn't where anybody imagined that we'd be 4 weeks into the season.
I think that to answer your question, Dan, if they reach that point where they want to consider a change and think it's that bad because of what's going on and off the field, the sense would be it can't get much worse. So why
but
not?
It can.
Well, I think, you've corrected me in the past and you've been right. It's like, okay, I thought that maybe they bottomed out in Kansas City. No, they can go even lower. So possibly that's true. But I want to ask you this. Your sense of all the people at Haugh, I think you probably have the best sense of Kevin Warren and how he might be internalizing this and how he might be reacting to this. And just because the Bears haven't fired a coach in season before, do you think that would prevent him from making history and being that guy who presides over something that happens for the first time? Or how do you think he's handling this embarrassing season?
Well, look, I don't think he's going to be guided and restricted by what's happened here in the previous 103 years. I don't think that's something that is going to be like, okay, we've never done it, so we can't do it. But I just think that Kevin's a very meticulous and calculated person. And so he wants to do things that are well thought out, that have purpose behind them, that have that sense of direction that we talked about a minute ago. I guarantee you that he's as embarrassed as anybody by the way that this regular season has started, by the number of missteps that have happened for this football team, the number of embarrassing moments they've had both on game days and with all the other stuff that's going on with Chase Claypool and Alan Williams and their quarterback press conference a few weeks ago, and all the things that just kind of have exposed the organization as one that is very rarely prepared for the moments it needs to be prepared for. And so I'm sure that notebook inside Kevin's office is being filled with, okay, here's things we need to do to troubleshoot this in the short term. Here's changes we need to make for the long term. What that results in, I guess we all just have to buckle in, sit back and find out.
Yeah, I think that there's been some really bad distractions this season. Obviously the defensive coordinator, Alan Williams, that whole thing has been bad. We've heard various players talk. This current Chase Claypool thing, I get it. The guy's got no value, but we were talking during the break about the idea that, they couldn't go after Jalen Carter because they didn't know if they could handle him. Frankly, I believe them after watching this. I mean, they clearly couldn't have handled him, and it doesn't matter that he is ripping up the league and King Kong in Philadelphia and all that stuff, because you don't even know if he'd have attended a meeting here. It's crazy.
Yeah, and well, like with this Claypool incident, Mully, it's like it's exposed everything that is astray with the organization. It starts with the inability to create consistent performance on the field. It continues with the inability to keep one of your veteran guys who's supposed to be a difference maker in your locker room from creating distraction continually, consistently with his emotional temperament. And then your handling of it was so publicly clumsy and awkward that it inspires zero confidence from the outside world for sure. And who knows inside that building, and your ability to handle things smoothly, gracefully, with authority, with a sense of just, this is what we do and this is how we do it. And that's been the head scratcher above anything else this week is how we could come off a game where the Bears played really well for 3 quarters. Their quarterback had a nice day, a career day in terms of production. And yet for 2.5 days, we've been concerned with the diva wide receiver who's not going to be here anymore because they just didn't find a way to quickly and concisely get to the point with it and make it very clear what his status was and where they're headed from here. And it's just, again, if this was a one-off, you'd say, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But this is like the 7th thing since the middle of August that's been sideways.
This segment with Dan Wiederer is sponsored by Curry Ford of Valpo. Curry Ford of Valpo is the destination for lifted trucks and Ford performance vehicles. Okay, Dan, pertaining to the game itself, Tevin Jenkins, he can be designated to return. He could play. They said they haven't ruled that out on Thursday night. Eddie Jackson on the injured list still. Which one of those 2 guys will come back? Will both of them come back? What do you think?
Right now, if I was putting money on it, I'd say neither. Eddie was listed as a DNP again in the walkthrough yesterday, still dealing with that foot injury, and maybe they want to give that one more week to get fully right. Tevin hasn't had any practice time. The window for him to return from IR was just opened Monday. It gives them 21 days to put him back on the 53-man roster. It's just very hard for me to believe that both conditioning wise and chemistry wise with what you have up front, that he would be ready that quickly to jump back into the mix. Now, Luke Getsy, who usually is a straight shooter, kind of dropped a hint on Tuesday that yeah, it's a realistic possibility that Tevin could play on Thursday. I'm skeptical of that just because of what I mentioned there, and the Bears are just going to have to kind of monitor that going forward. And again, like, getting Tevin back is a big deal. Keeping him back, as you guys know, is the bigger deal. You want to make sure that when he gets back into your offensive line, that you're not sitting there waiting for him to be out within 10 to 12 to 14 days, and that he can play for you for 6 or 7 games and give you some of that stability up front. Because overall, the offensive line gave Justin some time on Sunday, and you saw with some of the things they did that he was able to distribute the football, and the offense looked like a real NFL offense in 2023.
I'm not a big Lucas Patrick guy, and I was told by a person I trust that he's not a great player to begin with, so I kind of went along with that. I think he's played okay, but I wonder, Dan, if you had a different center, might you have tried to actually have the quarterback run the ball up a real like QB sneak on 4th and half a yard, as opposed to operating out of a shotgun and relying on multiple blocks and multiple people doing the right thing in order to get a first down. In other words, as much as they've been defending this, and frankly, my stomach turns at the amount of defense to it, because, you realize it didn't work, right? I mean, why can't you just say, listen, we want to win the game. We were trying to win the game. That didn't win the game. So, yeah, of course we do something different because we want to win the game. Whatever. That's just an aside from me. But would they have gone for it had they a different center? Do you think that the fact that Lucas Patrick was under center is one of the reasons they operated out of shotgun?
Possibly. You want to be able to get that reliable push up front and be able to get that going like so many teams do. I think it's sad that they don't have enough in their arsenal to confidently just have one thing that you can do on 4th and 3/4 of a yard. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to pick up that first down and move on with what you envisioned in shortening the game and winning it. Personally, if you're going to go for it and you're going to go out of shotgun, I would prefer something that keeps the ball in Justin's hands. Maybe you do the read option fake, and then you get him out on the edge with, Robert Tonyan was out there blocking, but maybe you have him as a target there in case that guy comes to get Justin and you get the yard that way. I just would prefer the ball in Justin's hand in that situation, because he's the playmaker, right? And he's the guy that can do it more. But man, like, this is just another example of, like, here you are in an opportunity to finish off a game, to steady yourself after a team comes back from 21 down, and the simplest task, gaining 3/4 of a yard on 4th down, you can't even pull off. And then it leads to the 14th consecutive loss. And here we are on another Wednesday, talking with agitated tones and scratching our head till there's no hair up there anymore.
Well, we're closer to kickoff, and I don't think you can dodge the prediction this week, Dan. So who you picking?
I'm picking the Commanders. I think that this defensive front is really, really good and has a chance to make things uncomfortable. I think the Bears on the short week on the road are facing a little bit of a steep climb there. Now look, like, Sam Howell has been sacked 24 times. He's given the ball away 6 times. You should have an opportunity. I know this is the Bears and they haven't been able to do either one of those things, take the ball away or sack the quarterback, but you should have an opportunity to make a young, inexperienced quarterback make a mistake or two that potentially gives you a chance to win a football game. And so that's going to be their pathway to trying to pull off an upset. But like, until further notice, I can't trust this team to meet moments, because they haven't for a year. And so, yeah, Commanders is my pick. And I sit with that pretty steadily, because it's particularly with the injuries in the secondary right now. And you got to try to stop Terry McLaurin as well. There's a lot of things matchup wise that don't necessarily suit this team at this state.
Great stuff, Dan. Thank you, buddy.
Safe travels.
All right, guys. Talk soon.
Yeah. Boy. I'm just wondering what's going to happen Friday if indeed they lose another football game. And I don't have a lot of faith in them either, David. We will officially make our picks, I believe, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah, we have time.
Can we put that off till Friday? Maybe?
No, I think if you want to.
I'm not sure.
We can predict what's going to happen with the organization on Friday morning.
Okay.
Based on what happens Thursday night. Let's do that.
Dustin, I'm just curious. You took the Bears last week. Do you consider yourself a winner because of the point spread?
No.
Okay.
I did run that past David, I think, and he laughed at me and said, "No, that doesn't count."
Okay.
If I got to use the spread in my 11 wins.
Yeah.
I scoffed. It was a guffaw.
Okay. Dustin, are you worried that the Bears are going to get to a point where they cannot get 11 wins? Like, do you fear that they're going
by 2025?
No, but you had 11 wins. You moved it to 12, and then you moved it back to 11.
0-6, then 11 straight.
Yeah, is that what you're imagining?
Sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah. Or 1-5, and then they live. Do the math. It's still mathematically possible.
Dustin is, in case you're missing it, incredibly stubborn. So he's staying with the 11.
So you say incredibly stubborn. I'm just saying he's always a glass half full guy.
He's a glass half full of it guy. I get that. But a very stubborn person. 312-644-6767. And I admire that, Dustin. And that's not true either. Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score.
Chicago football fans, tomorrow don't miss Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric Football Game Day on The Score, where all of our shows and unprecedented team of football experts get you ready for the primetime matchup between Chicago and Washington, presented by your local Ford dealers on Sports Radio 670 The Score. And always live on the free Odyssey app.
From the 630, which one of you guys has been smacked or punched in the face most recently?
Who are these people?
Like Chris Rock. Ray said he's got a story. Ray said he has a story about getting smacked or punched in the face.
Smacked in the face. What did Will Smith do to you?
Okay, so I was punched in the face. This was like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago.
Okay.
I was working at an auto parts store, and I got sucker punched, and my jaw got fractured because I didn't see it coming. I had to get my mouth wired like Kanye West. I couldn't eat for the whole summer. I was on like Kanye West, Insure for breakfast, all that whole thing, liquid diet, man, it sucked.
What'd you do to deserve it?
Nothing. I worked at an auto parts store as a cashier.
So did you sell some bad windshield wipers?
No, the guy came in for like a Sprite on a hot May day, almost June. and I thought it
Give
was
the
weird.
man a Sprite. Give him a Sprite.
He didn't say anything. He gave me $2. I had to turn away because that's the way the registers were set up. Had to turn away, put the money in the register. Sucker punched.
That is so terrible.
Wait,
Ruined my summer.
I don't
man.
understand. What was the end game? Did he take money or
He ran out. He took. This is the end of the story.
Took
is
the Sprite?
He took the whole till, and ran out the store.
Oh, I see.
that's a robbery.
Yeah, that's
my son. Yes.
Some call that a robbery.
Didn't
I like to
even
punch him in
take-
his face.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I like to punch
Didn't
him in
even
his
take
face.
the Sprite, man.
Oh man, no, the Sprite was a ruse, Ray.
It was.
Yeah, I think
And it was for less than $200.
it sounds like that might still be able to happen to you if you don't realize that it wasn't about the Sprite, man.
Oh, I know.
Through the wire. I'm so sorry. Wow.
That's the Diaz difference. If I've ever seen
I was
it.
really hoping Ray did something that earned it, but no, not likely.
Oh man.
Wow.
That is amazing. That makes the whole week of radio worthwhile.
than that there is. So, you know what I mean? I'm just trying to get a dub. So.
Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. That is the voice of Justin Fields, and he's just trying to get a dub.
Good answer. Very good answer. That's what you want to hear out of your quarterback, especially one that had good numbers statistically, but still lost the game because in large part of those 2 fourth-quarter turnovers. So he had the right tone, and he said the right things.
Tune in all day tomorrow for a Four Seasons heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electric football game day. Presented by your local Ford dealers, and It's Not a Game, Illinois.com will get you set up for the primetime matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders.
Oh, we love these primetime games, especially during the week.
We'll be picking it apart.
Yeah.
We'll give you our predictions. And I get to come back and talk to Olin and Patrick for a good hour plus before the game to really take you into it. And then I think Mark Grody is going to do the post game with those guys. I'm not sure. Did you see Grody sent us the photo of Brad Biggs?
I did see that. Biggsy sent me the photo as well of him wielding the S-wing hammer and axe.
And the axe.
Yes.
And he looked like he was ready for business.
Biggsy is a little bit of a hatchet man, right?
Oh, that's not nice. That is not nice.
I know.
Keep it real.
Keep it real.
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. I'd hammer in the. Did you know? I think that's Pete Seeger. Is that right?
I think maybe so. Yeah.
I think that was debuted at like a communist rally. That's considered a controversial song because there is some communist connection to it. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
And yet you sing it all the time.
I do all the time. Well, I feel so much more enriched now.
Oh yeah. You're welcome for allowing me to ruin a good song for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You better not sing it. Let's get back to the phone lines. 312-644-6767. Colin's on the north side. Hey, Colin.
What's up, Colin?
Oh, my God, we lost Colin.
You lose Colin.
Damn it.
You lose everybody.
David is in Woodridge. David? Oh, thank God.
Hey, David.
So, listen, there's no question that this is an organizational failure at every level, all the way from ownership down to management, coaching, quarterback, other players. But the fact that there have been failures at every level does not mean that you get the failure at the head coaching level. And there are demonstrable examples, many of them this season, this young season, in which Eberflus has failed as a head coach. There is, he's lost players in the locker room. The players aren't prepared. His players play with a lackadaisical attitude. There's terrible play design. There's terrible play calling. There's terrible execution by the players on the field. Eberflus has direct responsibility for each and every one of those things. So it's not a question for me about whether the coach should be fired. It's a question about how and when to do it.
Thanks, David. Yeah. Appreciate the phone call. I will say this. I don't necessarily agree with Dan Wiederer, and
you rarely agree with
No, we have good conversations on the Take the North podcast. I think that I would not hesitate in firing a head coach if I feel like it's time to do that because I don't feel like there's anybody else in the building that could do the job. Or that wouldn't prevent me from wanting to make a change that I think you have to make a profound statement about the direction of this franchise and firing a head coach. If you want to do that and you've decided that's more important than who replaces him on an interim basis, I wouldn't let that question prevent me from providing what I feel like is the right answer.
If I were to fire a coach in season, I would want to hire someone, maybe a veteran guy from the outside that could come in as sort of an overlord and help with that transition. And maybe even if you were to promote someone, give them someone they could lean on and figure out a way to just get through the season.
I think that's an interesting idea, Mully. I don't
That's
know.
how I do it.
I don't know if somebody comes to mind immediately in your head or somebody that you've heard mentioned, but I don't know if that's as practical as, say, hypothetically,
Yeah.
Friday morning they get blown out after getting blown out by the Commanders and national television, another embarrassment, another low. Let's say they decide to make a change and they elevate, hypothetically, Luke Getsy as the head coach. I understand that he's part of the offensive issues, but if they name him the interim head coach for the rest of the season and they have John Hoke or Borgonzi be the defensive coordinator, however they do it, I think that represents significant and dramatic change that you're looking for.
I don't know. I don't know that Getsy would be the answer for me. I don't know. Here's my problem. I would want to be, if indeed I changed coaches, I would want to be in a position to move quickly if someone became available. So the minute the season ends, I would be ready to hire someone that is fired on Black Monday, whatever way you want to look at it. Whoever, and I'm not saying that I'd hire Bill Belichick if he ends up getting fired, but I guarantee you, if Mike Tomlin were somehow run out of Pittsburgh, or
You want to be in a position to hire.
I want to be in a
pounce.
position to bring Mike Tomlin in the second the season ends.
Well, okay, but
I want to be on the phone with him while they're telling him he's fired, if indeed he were to
But
leave.
you still would be doing that if you fire Matt Eberflus in December 1st. I think that's the case.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess if you tell someone that they are, merely an interim and you don't make a promise to them or whatever.
I think what they're weighing probably right now is what the value is in the remaining 12 games after Thursday night. Is this a season worth salvaging, or what damage are you doing if you maintain the status quo for the final 12 games? What damage are you doing to the development of certain players and the growth of your quarterback? All the things.
Like, look what happened with the Colts, right? So you are the owner of the team and you decide to get rid of your coach. You turn and you bring in a good friend and a good servant and a guy who was a center. And then you think about like Jeff Saturday's relationship there versus like Olin Krut's relationship here. So you bring Olin in because of his close relationship with George.
Well,
never mind.
That's not going to happen.
No.
You know that. Plus, they would have to pay him more than $15 an hour to do that.
So what
Tom
expert?
Tom Thayer would be a guy that would be.
He could about this. You what you do is you hire Hilge, and then he gets to bring Tom, his buddy, in. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know that Hilke wants to do that. I don't think
It's
Tom
gotta
would
be
want to
an
do that.
ex-center.
Doesn't
They
have
would
to be
do-
an ex-center.
It
Okay.
does. He's got to be a Jeff Saturday.
Where's Jerry Fontenot when you need him? Is he in coaching? He's a guy, right? Going way back.
Oh boy.
I don't know if that's the answer, Mully, but I do think that there's more speculation surrounding the future of the head coach in Game 5, Week 5, than I ever thought we would be.
No,
in taking
I did
part
not
in.
see this one coming.
No.
Before the year started. This is sort of an anti-Cubs thing. You know how before the year started, you take where the Cubs are. Before the year started, you wouldn't want any part
I
of
wish
this.
I never would have said that. You keep bringing that back on me. But I did say it.
You did mention
I did
You
a
mentioned
couple
it
times.
once, and I can't stop. Hey, speaking of the Cubs, we're going to bring in Bruce Levine. Bruce was at the news conference yesterday. He's also got a really good idea moving forward for the Cubs, which I like a lot.
He was due.
We mentioned it earlier. He was due. And I want to know the impact of losing a Debo. How do you get through that? And what does this signify? The kind of change that the White Sox have been promising since firing Rick and Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 of The Score.
The Score is Chicago Sports. Chicago Sports is The Score. Thanks for keeping us the #1 and most listened to sports station in Chicago. Listen on your radio, laptop, mobile device through the Odyssey app.
But for example, I always use as an example Pacino. They teach you in acting that it's all about being incredibly curious. Well, Pacino takes it to the next level. Like you could, turn on a light. He's like, wait a second. You flip a switch over here. The light goes on over there. Whoa, this is sorcery. So we're just breaking down speech patterns. If you watch Robert Downey Jr. does this thing where he talks slow at the beginning and speeds up at the end and sounds like you have to burp halfway through. Okay, so are we on the same page or not? There's that type of stuff which can, that finds its way. It's almost like you're teaching people how to do them. Or the impressions, it's interesting because if you start with Robert Downey Jr. and slow it down and race the pitch, it becomes Dr. Evil.
Yeah.
Throw me a frickin' bone, and then you add some Aaron-ish, it's Donald Trump, quite frankly. So it's odd that they're so close. You go, hi, Kermit the Frog here, and then you bring it down, and it becomes John C. Reilly. Did you touch my drum set? And then it becomes Mark Ruffalo. I see this is an absolute win. And then you can actually add a little more Kermit back, and it's Joe Rogan. Wow, Jamie, pull that up. Oh, my God, it's effing nuts. That's crap. Jamie, pull it up. So, it's really interesting. Oh, Chris Hemsworth is up here, and Russell Crowe's down here. So they're so close.
They're kindred spirits.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, to have Jimmy Fallon. Oh my gosh, it's so great! I can't believe it's Adam Sandler. Hey, how you doing? I really like what you're doing. Start laughing. Oh gosh, it's so great. Buddy, you're doing such a great job. Oh my god. You guys see this? Okay. Hey, then Chris Berman shows up. Back to you guys.
Yeah, but the ability to go back and forth, like. I would imagine, yes, a lot of people can do the small, but the ability, like you just showed us with the
that's more fun to me.
The vocal range part of going back and forth. That's amazing. That's mastery.
Yeah, I don't know if it's mastery. It's a gimmick, but I'll take it. I'm fine with it. Yeah, to me, that's what made me different than most people who did impressions. They do, Rich Little would do 30 minutes of one, and then you're going, what's next? What's the next thing that you're going to do?
Bruce Levine.
It's great to talk some baseball.
Score Baseball Insider, covering the Cubs and White Sox for more than 30 years.
Bruce Levine is a newsbreaker.
Inside the Clubhouse co-host, alongside our own David Haugh.
We've got a lot of baseball conversation to cover.
Great being with you, talking baseball.
Bruce Levine.
That's a really good question, Bruce.
See, Bruce asked the first hard question.
With Mully and Haugh on 670 The Score.
Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Always a delight to talk to our friend Bruce Levine. He joins us on the Score Hotline, powered by IBEW Local 9, Chicago's original powerhouse since 1892. Bruce, good morning to you, buddy. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How are you? It's baseball postseason. Unfortunately, no Chicago teams in that. So with that, we're headed to the off season. Where do you want to begin today?
Yesterday, Jed Hoyer, he held court and he did very well for himself, Bruce, I think, explaining everything about the season, putting it into context. I know you asked a couple really smart questions. What was your biggest takeaway from hearing Jed on Tuesday?
Well, I guess my biggest takeaway was initially that they don't consider that a good season, even though they had a great July and August and first week of September, and we're only a game out of making the playoffs. He does not consider that a good year, and I liked hearing that because there was no, well, we've improved, we're better, we're as an organization, we're proud of what we did. None of that. So I think you have a president of baseball operations that understands the heartbeat of the fan base and realizes that incremental improvement is not good enough for fans these days. They want to see results on the field, and for that, I applaud him.
Yeah, I thought he did great, and I think he said a lot of the stuff that a lot of people are interested in, talking about wanting to bring Cody Bellinger back, talking about the way that you look at next year and how they went out and spent money, and the idea that led them to the season they had. Do you expect them? And I know, Bruce, that you have reported that they'd be interested in a guy like Pete Alonso. That makes perfect sense to me. I mean, you get a first baseman like that could come in and hit home runs. Seems like there's a vacancy. Seems like that would definitely be something that they could use. How realistic is that? I know you're reporting it, that their interest. Do you believe they will get that done?
Well, it takes two to tango. So you have the New York Mets. You have a new president of baseball operations in David Stearns, a guy that for many years had to get things done without a big payroll in Milwaukee, and did it beautifully, by the way. Building from their farm system and just almost getting to the playoffs every year for the last 5 or 6 out of 7. So I would say that you have to look at the new president and see what he wants to do first when he and Mr. Cohn, the owner of the Mets, decide what they want to do. But up until this point, there has been no real negotiations for a long-term deal with Alonso, who has a year left. Now, let's say they're interested in trading him, but what are you and as the president, general manager, Mully and Haugh, going to do for a 1-year rental? How would you make a trade for that? Would it have to be a sign and trade before you could make a move like that by giving up 2 or 3 of your top farm system players for Pete Alonso?
Let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be, Bruce. No.
Oh, it's not complicated.
No, Bruce, make me an offer.
It's simple.
Make me an offer.
Simple.
Tell me who you want to offer. What prospect? Yes.
Okay, if you want Morel, Canario, and a young pitcher, are you saying yes?
That's a lot for 1 year of Pete Alonso, but maybe I would.
He's 50 and 100.
Okay. Then I probably would do that deal. I think that if you're the Cubs, you're willing to sacrifice a lot, provided that you are confident in your ability to re-sign Cody Bellinger. And maybe even if you don't, you want to go out and get Alonso. Maybe they're two independent things. But, Bruce, I'd be curious, number one, not only with what you would be willing to give up, because I think that you'd be willing to give up pretty much it'd be hard to say no to that possibility if he's on the market. And secondly, like, how realistic is it to think that both Bellinger and Alonso could be in the Cubs lineup next year?
Why not? I mean, if you're the Chicago Cubs, all right, so it's Chicago. You're here to win. Did the same owner not allow huge spending to go on in 2015, 2016 to win a World Series? Why wouldn't the Ricketts family want to win again? Okay, that's my question to you in answer. So if they truly want to be a great organization for a long period of time, yes, you build your farm system. You continue to build your farm system, but you're going to have to spend money. You're going to have to go over the cap at some point, you know, and you're going to have to go into paying a penalty, you know, for having a high payroll in order to win. The question will be, when they sit down for their budget meetings the next couple weeks, is this the time? Is this 2015 over again? You know, are you signing the John Lesters? Are you signing the Jason Haywards, even though that didn't work out the way you want to? In other words, are you putting all your chips in to try to win when you feel you are close to being a World Series contender? So the question will be, is this the time to do that? And then you'll know if they're going to spend $200 million plus on Bellinger. You're going to be able to give farm system players for a guy like Alonso. I say, you know, this is the for me, but again, not my money, not my team.
I'm curious what you thought, if anything, of the White Sox moves. You know, there were a lot. I mean, obviously the headline was, you know, Darryl Boston, because he is a former Sox player and had been there forever, and there was that Slate story that said that he was, you know, the guy that filled Kenny in on everything. Jose Castro was the hitting coach. You got rid of him. They did other things, right? They reassigned Kurt Hassler. There were other moves made. They moved guys around in the organization. What is your take on what the point was of those moves? And is this part of an idea of empowering Pedro Grifol to hire his own people, as opposed to, you know, giving him Ethan Katz and Charlie Montoya? Or is this about just, I don't know, moving deck chairs on the Titanic?
You know, it's a great question, Mike, because I don't think I can answer that other than to say that I don't think they were getting the instruction they wanted for their players. They didn't improve. You know, who improved on that team this year? Okay, and who had a year that was equal to what people were expecting, other than Luis Robert? What player, what pitcher had the year that they expected them to have? So from that perspective, I think you have to initially you have to change, because the players aren't getting better. You have to, but more importantly, you need different players. Okay, you need players that know how to play the game of baseball, that aren't five-tool players, but are players that know how to play all the different roles in baseball that you have to in order to win. You have to be able to run the bases, catch the ball, throw the ball to the right guy in the cutoffs. Things that sound simple and boring that are essential to winning baseball games. You have to have a catcher who really can grab a hold of a staff and make them better and make them equal to what they are. There's no better example than going 8 miles north and looking at the difference that Yan Gomes made for the Chicago Cubs this year, as opposed to Wilson Contreras, who everybody loved and admired, but wasn't the catcher who was going to make the staff better. Those are the things that are essential. A real outstanding catcher, a shortstop of the future, not necessarily Tim Anderson, and start getting young arms that can eventually be coming into your organization that can compete. They are right now, to me, you know, they're a couple years away from competing. If they do this thing right again and they bring in the right players, they will get incrementally better. You will have a different voice and a different opinion when you hear Chris Getz and his people talk. So I think it was an organizational flush that had to happen. You don't just concentrate on the coaching staff.
Bruce, back to the Cubs for a moment. Next year, as you point out, I think could be a big year where they look like they're serious about contending, and they should look at it that way after this season. It'll be about their starting rotation, though. You wonder about two guys you know are going to be back, Steele and Tyone. I wonder what you think about two veterans, Stroman and Kyle Hendricks, who have contract decisions awaiting, and then two young guys, Cade Horton, Jordan Wicks, and how they fit in.
Well, you know, let's start at the bottom with Wicks and Horton. Those are the pitchers of the future. Wicks had probably 4 outstanding starts and a couple shaky ones. So you have hope there. You like everything you saw about Wicks. Whether he was good or whether he got his butt kicked, he was the same guy. He reacted the same. His work ethic was the same afterwards. So you like what you see there. With Horton, you're talking about a possible generational pitcher in the Cubs organization. That's what scouting people think about Horton. Is he ready opening day next year? Probably not. Is he in the rotation by July? Maybe so. So I think people have an awful lot to look forward to here. Steele, you know, stepping out and being the guy that he has to be, the ace of the staff, was a terrific story this year. And no reason to think he's not going to continue. I just think that, you know, I don't know what you can expect on Tyone. Will he be the pitcher of the second half, not the one from the first half? And will Hendricks be back? I think all indication is that Hendricks will be back. Will it be for 1 year or an extended year or two on the contract? He told me the last day in Milwaukee, he said, look, I don't care about that right now. I want them to pick my contract up. I want to come back. I love what's going on here. I'm ready to help compete and win with this team. It's a terrific group. So from all of that, I believe that they need to maybe add another pitcher. Certainly, I think they really have to address the bullpen. All right, you have Alzolay. If you're going to spend a lot of money next year and you're going to try to win, why not Josh Hader?
Wow, that would be interesting.
I like the way you're thinking this morning, Bruce.
Bruce, when we look at it, where they're at in terms of just Bellinger and what that contract might look like and how many people are interested, is there a chance that he's priced out of what they want to do? Is there a concern? We had a texter earlier said that he's looking for a Chris Bryant type escape. I think that's pretty harsh. But are there any concerns over him and how much you give him and how much he, after getting back to where he was before, wants to stay there?
Well, there's a big difference between a 6 or 7 year contract and maybe a 9 or 10 that he and Scott Boras might want. The market dictates what Scott Boras and players usually get. So if the game plan for Scott Boras is to wait for Ohtani, who's probably the only superior left-handed bat in that free agent class, and wait till he signs, you might be waiting a long time for Cody Bellinger to be available to you. You know, how many times have we watched, you know, guys that are free agents from Boras end up signing, you know, a week or 10 days before spring training or even after spring training starts and get a lot of money? Can you, if you're the Chicago Cubs, can you wait that long to see how the market sits to put your team together next year? If that's the case, you know, you might have to move on. I would think that they'll do everything they can to try to bring him back within the reason of what they think his market is. And if it's not up to the expectations of the player or Boras, they move on. But when we talked to Bellinger Saturday, the last time he played, he spoke in past tense. You know, he wanted to take it all in. He appreciated everything that had happened. He wanted to enjoy his teammates and the fans one more time. You know, obviously there were a lot of fans, Cub fans up there in Milwaukee. It just sounded like he was in full free agent mode, moving away from having been a Cub. That was my interpretation. Doesn't mean he won't come back, but I think it's probably going to be a long shot unless you're willing to wait until February to sign him.
So that brings up the next guy, next man up, if you will, Pete Crow-Armstrong. Jed talked about him yesterday as well, compared his struggles to a young Anthony Rizzo with the Padres, and then look how that turned out. I think we all want to see that, Bruce. I think we also saw 0 for 14 and being overmatched by fastballs, and I wonder how he adjusts to velocity and if you still have as much confidence in him moving forward than we all did before he was brought up.
That's the one area I wasn't happy with the press conference. Hoyer addressed a lot of things and did it very well, and I thought came out sounding great. But the one area where he said Pete Crow-Armstrong has to go home and, like Rizzo did in 2011, the offseason, and improve his offense. I don't think it's that easy. Okay, but be able to improve his swing, be able to get the major league fastballs. I think that's part of player development, and it's part of just playing more games and being involved. Are they asking him to go to winter ball? Are they asking him to go to the Arizona Fall League? I would say, for a 21-year-old kid that completed a first healthy year in a long time, they probably don't want to do that. But how are you going to get better going home and facing a high school kid from a local area or a batting machine? I think he needs to play more games. He's going to get better. He's got an awful lot of tools. He's an exciting player. He's going to be a great defender, but he's got to be able to hit. And I just think that's more time. Probably asking too much too soon from a 21-year-old kid.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, Bruce. Always a joy.
Thanks, Bruce.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
That is our guy, Bruce Levine. You don't agree?
It's good stuff. No, I do agree with him.
Yeah.
I wondered about that yesterday when Jed essentially compared Pete Crow-Armstrong's struggles to Anthony Rizzo's, and I wondered if there might be a component in the offseason that he might take advantage of to try to improve that swing or catch up with that velocity, whatever the case may be. He's not yet proven the ability to hit major league fastballs, and I wonder, it's only 14 at-bats. Don't want to overreact. Yeah. But that was a part of him coming up in September that was disappointing. And Jed said he liked the struggle. Didn't like it that much. I mean, he struggled.
He did struggle. 312-644-6767. All right, we're gonna get back to some Bears talk. Interested in what you have to say. I'd like to know if people find the U.S. House of Representatives or the Bears more chaotic. Which one would be winning or leading at this? No, we're not talking about that. But there's a lot of chaos in the world, in case you are paying attention. It's Mully and Haugh at Chicago Sports Radio, 6-7 of The Score.
Coming up at 2 on the Parkins and Spiegel Show, we're at American Place Casino in Waukegan for the launch of Circa Sports in Illinois. Come see us and hang out. Pat Manley joins the show at 3 o'clock.
All the sentences I could have predicted today.
Yes. One more gone but not forgotten, and that's our sweet Lucy. At the age of 12, she was run over in our driveway.
Oh! Like that? Was she run over like that?
What? What was that?
That was a basketball game when they're giving a tribute to his dog.
Play that again.
One more gone but not forgotten, and that's our sweet Lucy. At the age of 12, she was run over in our driveway.
Oh! Like that? Was she run over like that?
So it's a basketball game. They're giving a tribute to the dog. A steal happens, and the guy just dunks it on a fast break, and the color guy's like that?
It's so mean. Was she run over? And he doubled down. It was like that. Was she run over like that?
In case you didn't understand what I was trying to say.
Apparently it was a cat.
How does the guy also forget the name of his beloved pet? Herbie, one more time. Right at the beginning, he forgets the name of the pet.
One more gone but not forgotten, and that's our sweet Lucy. At the age of 12, she was run over in our driveway.
Oh! Like that? Was she run over like that?
If you think it's a person to begin it with, then that makes it even worse.
That's why I thought it was a child. I thought it was a 12-year-old girl.
No, it was a pet. Or
At
else
first,
we
yeah.
wouldn't do that.
Oh my God!
Doesn't that strike you, Ranger, as something that Ostrowski would do?
Oh, say something like that? Yeah, because he's just a bad.
I love
guy.
Joe so much. I love him so much because he allowed the beautiful. And Joe's going to join me in the next segment. But the beautiful thing about Joe and like the whole like nighttime crew, he was the bad guy so that I didn't have to be.
You know what?
It's so great.
You delegate that really well.
Being the bad guy?
No, yeah, you delegate that. You be the butthole so that I can be the nice guy.
Well, sometimes I don't have to. Sometimes Herbie has stuff that he wants to say.
Oh.
And then he says it.
Herb's a top 5 bad guy.
100% Ostrowski would have done that. 100%.
It was only a dog or a cat or whatever.
Or that is the voice of Justin Fields, who, of course, is currently the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears.
Currently?
but maybe trade fodder
Okay.
in the near future. If you're
Wow.
following any of this stuff,
Well,
come on now.
It's a little bit carried away, I would say. We've gone from preseason nationally. What does Justin Fields have to do to put himself in the MVP race under consideration, which was hyperbole then, and it's hyperbole now to, I think, suggest that he's now trade fodder or trade bait, or they might consider trading him.
I was kidding.
Yeah, I know, but but
it's everywhere.
National networks are not kidding when they're openly debating that, and certainly the questions come in, and that's why our guy Brad Biggs addressed it in the Chicago Tribune, chicagotribune.com, in his Q&A this morning. Here's the headline: Can Justin Fields solidify himself as a future starter? Could he be traded? So it's in the headline, and Biggsy approaches it, and I do think it's a bit silly to consider. But he did answer the question because it did come in, and I think people will kind of, playing out every scenario. When you're talking about firing a coach in Week 5, I suppose everything is on the table. But he says, what is Justin Fields' current trade value? Would a team like the Falcons or Jets be willing to give up a first-round pick? That's the question that Brad answers this way. A first-round pick? That seems to be like one of those trades you're asking yourself, what is the best-case scenario for the Bears? It's my belief that if a trade is to materialize for Fields, it would be in the offseason. And then he explained some of those scenarios. And I think that's wise. I think that's way too early and premature to be considering or even discussing, speculating about trading Justin Fields.
Yeah, today is October 4th, a Wednesday. The trade deadline in the NFL, and you can't make this up, is October 31st, which of course is Halloween. And at 3:00 on Halloween, it is trick or treat for the NFL. You can expect to see some players traded for sure. I don't know. We did a little. I don't know if you were paying attention, but I just did a little survey of Brandon and Dustin. Are you in or out on Justin Fields right now? And Dustin gave me a thumbs down, and Brandon, sensible man he is, gave kind of a.
When did that happen?
A middle thumb. You had wandered off.
Where did I wander off to? Why was I not part of this survey?
Well, we felt that we should do it before you tried to overwhelm us with your opinion and got angry when no one agreed with it. Are you? I'm joking. Are you in or out on Justin Fields right now?
I think it's incomplete.
See, I'm with Brandon. I don't believe it's up, but it's kind of
I don't think it's up. I think you'd be foolish to say that you're all in on Justin Fields after 4 games and what we've seen from him. Even if I had to check a box and you were forcing me with all of your sheer will and indomitable spirit to make an answer.
See, you just turned that on
I
me
would
now.
say no. It's impossible to say yes right now. He's not proven that he's worthy of that kind of faith and belief in terms of building a franchise around him, thinking that you can win a Super Bowl because of him. There have been too many shortcomings in the passing game and too incomplete of a picture in terms of what he's capable of accomplishing for your franchise.
I think what's fascinating to think about, so for instance, Cole Kmet, they gave a contract extension to, so that he's okay and he's a part of it, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to worry about it. But they got other guys that have contract questions that need to be answered. So, Jalen Johnson, are you in on Jalen Johnson? I think he's a really good player. Has he produced the takeaways that would get him paid, the big money he probably is seeking? Could he be a guy you trade if this thing continues to go the wrong way?
These are good hypotheticals,
I'm just asking hypothetically.
I think before I answer that realistically, I want to know, what is your objective as a general manager? What are you planning to do this year, and have you already abandoned hope and really basically given up on this season? And if the answer is yes, then what are you doing moving forward? Who is going to be your coaching staff? What kind of coach are you looking for? What kind of regime are you trying to build? Jalen Johnson is a winning player.
I agree.
I would do whatever I could before October 31st or before the end of the season, when you see teams going to players who are going to be relevant and going to be parts of the future success, in theory, I would extend him more likely than I would trade him.
Darnell Mooney.
I would be more willing to trade him than extend him.
Wow.
Only because I think those are two different players and two different thought processes for me. Cornerbacks are hard to find. Jalen Johnson is a number 1 cornerback. Darnell Mooney is a number 2 wide receiver. I think that he probably will get an inflated contract more so than Jalen Johnson would. If you're asking me either or, I'm keeping Jalen Johnson. I'm dealing Darnell Mooney.
What about Justin Fields?
There's no way that anybody's going to get a quarterback at midseason, I think, and want to take that chance. Maybe they'd take a flyer, but no, I don't think that you're in a position to trade the quarterback that you began the season thinking was going to take you places. I just don't think that's realistic.
Look, I mean, if I'm just saying, if you're going to raise these questions, then logically you got to look at everybody with an expiring contract and say, are you in or out on them? Because that is the reality of where you are at this point in your season and in your regime. So if you don't plan on paying Jalen Johnson, and they haven't made a decision on that yet, right? Could you move him? I would not recommend doing that, but I'm just saying they need to know where they're at with all these players. To me, the moving Justin Fields thing is kind of insane, and what I'm trying to decide in my own mind is if I feel he'd be better elsewhere, that you could move him someplace where they would kind of be able to do better things with him than they are here.
Well, I think there's no doubt that there would be that confidence, because what they've done here is they've stunted his growth as a football player, and they have really gotten in the way. You could make that argument. If I'm in Justin Fields' camp, I'm looking at his Chicago Bears experience as one that was full of hope and then clouded by all the confusion, because the first season was a wash, rushed into action, not protected, didn't have weapons. Yep. Last year was, okay, that was a great 6-game stretch, but what do we do other than that? And then this season has been a disappointment, no doubt about it, until Sunday when he flashed for 3 quarters and then turned the ball over twice in the fourth quarter and had a costly grounding penalty that can't happen for a quarterback. So, look, he's got 1 more year on his contract next year. At the end of this season, maybe in the offseason, teams might consider, like the Falcons, maybe somebody else would enter in there. They think, we could fix him, we can salvage him, let's make a deal for him. But I don't think they're going to have those conversations realistically now, 27 days before the trade deadline.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just wonder, and I'm not picking on anyone, I just wonder when you look at this season, if you're talking about firing the coach, depending on whether or not you win on Thursday, then what are we talking about here?
Giving up on the quarterback as well?
Giving up on the season is what you're talking about.
Giving up on the season.
Yes.
And so all right, so if you fire the coach Friday morning and as Peter King suggested, and it's an embarrassing loss Thursday night, then on Friday morning, when you fire the coach and you are, say Ryan Poles hypothetically remains and he's answering questions about why you came to this decision, the natural conclusion to reach is if you fire the coach, you're tanking the season. If you're tanking the season, you're going after Caleb Williams. So in theory, to play this out, why not trade Justin Fields? Why not get what you can for him now? I still don't know that I would do that.
I got to tell you,
I hate this conversation.
I do too, but this Claypool thing really has frozen me with this idea that you've decided that there's a bad guy, you got to get rid of this guy. You gave up a lot for him. We'll take a 5th or a 6th. And then you find out that literally nobody in the league is interested.
Well, you'll take a 5th, all right.
Well, exactly. I'll take the 5th.
You'll need it.
Put me on the stand. You get nothing. But it's just one of these deals where did you really think you were going to be able to trade the guy? Is that why you're trying to stay mum about whether he was late for meetings or whatever his issue was, other than talking, saying something that you didn't like, you didn't enjoy hearing. I find this, it makes me question everything they're doing. You know, if you want to cut a guy, get it over with, do it.
Well, it also,
but what the hell are you doing with this thing?
It implies that there's a disconnect between the way the general manager may view Chase Claypool, gave up a high draft pick to get him, and with how the coaching staff has dealt with him. Maybe they've justified. I'm not saying that they're not, because if you have a player that is chronically late for meetings, if that's the case, or has an attitude issue, and he did speak up. What's very telling of the fact that Justin Fields alluded to the comments that Chase Claypool made to the media last Friday about his usage as being the reason that he, was not welcome back at Haugh. That's not been acknowledged necessarily by anybody else, but I think Justin Fields gave voice to that. The other thing that stood out to me is that Chase Claypool banished from Haugh, Mully, and the quarterback of this football team, who supposedly had this great chemistry with the wide receiver, hadn't talked to him since the game. Hadn't talked to him since Saturday.
Yeah.
Now, with friends like that, that seems very telling to me. So, but it's also getting back to the main issue. You're right. It's a symptom of a deeper problem at Haugh in terms of the communication, in terms of the dysfunction, and just the poor culture, the losing culture that has now permeates the building.
Okay, we've got Chris Chelios is going to join us next. We'll talk to him. Blackhawks getting underway. You saw a goal, I believe, maybe an empty netter, but a goal nonetheless from the great young player, Connor Bedard. We'll talk to Chelly about that. Plenty of assists on Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 Score.
Chicago football fans, tomorrow don't miss Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric Football Game Day on The Score, where all of our shows and unprecedented team of football experts get you ready for the primetime matchup between Chicago and Washington, presented by It'sNotAGameIllinois.com on Sports Radio 670 The Score.
I'm listening to Danny Parkins, and they ended the show, Friday. You know how we all are. Last segment of the week, you're like, okay, we're just done here. And Chris Tannehill, obviously, setting Danny up for a nice, easy tribute at the end of the show with Meatloaf and Louis Anderson passing away. And Tanny set him up, and Danny might have missed.
His name is Robert Paulson.
Fight Club, R.I.P. Louis Anderson. Wait, Meatloaf? I'm an idiot.
Man, we were so close to the finish line here.
Oh, no. Both are appropriate. I was reading about Louis Anderson during the break.
Fight Club, R.I.P. Louis.
You could tell something was wrong when he was saying it because there was a little hesitation, but he followed through with Louis Anderson.
Fight Club, R.I.P. Louis Anderson.
That was Fight Club, and Louis Anderson did die.
Technically, he's still correct.
Yes, they aren't independently incorrect. It just one has nothing to do with the other.
So now we can just use R.I.P. Louis Anderson for everything.
R.I.P. Louis Anderson.
Yep, that's right.
We all accidentally RIP'd people.
R.I.P. Louis Anderson.
Wait.
The best is he's so smooth. The end of it is pricelessly good.
Fight Club, R.I.P. Louis Anderson. Wait.
The pause, the pause between R.I.P. Louis Anderson and wait. You're like, hold on. Like you know Shane and Tanny lost it.
Yeah, it's also the music underneath, the boogie woogie blues underneath. I don't know what I can't tell exactly what it is, but that sounds like some sort of Texas boogie
Fight
woogie.
Club, R.I.P. Louis Anderson. Wait. He saw, yes, okay, he's sitting here. He looked through the glass, and he saw Shane absolutely explode, and Tanny do one of his, hands in the air,
whoa, and the lean back in the chair. That's exactly what he saw. He knew something went wrong. It's like when you see the phones all light up.
Yep.
And I know that I've misidentified something, but that is, oh my God, that's wonderful.
Yeah, the wait is my favorite part. It's not even close.
Oh, that's Paradise by the Dashboard Light? That is that part of it? I don't know that part of it.
IDK.
I guess I don't know the song that well.
That's just so, the pause.
Fight Club. R.I.P. Louis Anderson. Wait.
The silence gets longer and longer the more you listen to it.
Murphy, Nichols at the line. Chelios moving in. Chelios scores! Chris Chelios has won it for Chicago.
Three-time Stanley Cup champion.
What a competitor Chris Chelios has been over the years, and he's been a winner every place he's ever been.
Chris Chelios with Mully and Haugh on 670 The Score.
Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Always a delight to talk to the great Chris Chelios, and he joins us now on The Score hotline, powered by IBEW Local 9, Chicago's original powerhouse since 1892. Chris, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing well. We're holding up, and it's already October 4th, and we know that Connor Bedard makes his regular season debut on the 10th at the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's kind of cool for him to, get to open up against a guy he grew up watching, one of the great players. What are your thoughts on seeing him thus far, Chris? He looks pretty good to me.
I mean, just another quiet 3 points again last night. Every time he touches the puck, it's almost like when Savvy got to the Blackhawks, Benny Savard, like where he touched the puck and people get out of their seat because something special is going to happen. But just quickness, obviously his shot is his biggest weapon, and he's always looking to shoot, which is great. But the line last night with the Taylor Hall, who's actually a pretty good playmaker, and what a good veteran guy they picked up in him to play alongside Bedard. But yeah, apparently every team, was calling to open up against the Blackhawks because of Connor Bedard. And the Penguins got the lottery there on that one. So it's going to be great to watch him play his first game against Crosby.
It's been a lot of fun so far in preseason, Chelly, I think. And also, Kaylee did a great job last night in the booth next to Chris Voster's breaking things down on NBC Sports Chicago. When you watch the Hawks, obviously all eyes are on Bedard, but who else has maybe taken a half step forward or had a very good preseason that may have surprised you?
Well, it's not a surprise because he's been MVP of the league. Is that Corey Perry, again, he picked up right where he left off. You saw last night, that's exactly what he does. And then on top of that, he'll add he's almost like watching Dennis Rodman out there on the court because you never know what he's going to do, standing in the crease, trying to harass the goalie, or, he gets under people's skin, and he also, stands in for his teammates. The one kid that they brought back, Wyatt Kaiser, I think, they signed him as a free agent a couple of years ago, the kid from Wisconsin. You could tell, he's a college defenseman. He knows the position. He's got a little bit of Duncan Keith in him with the way he skates and stride, but I hope he turns out to be the guy that, could be their shutdown guy, which they so badly need to shut down the other team's top lines. But, other than that, Foligno adds that, that grit you saw last night at the end jumping in. They've got some size and whistle, and I love Tyler Johnson when he's healthy. So there's a lot of guys. Lucas Reichel, another skilled guy. So like you said earlier, it's a pretty exciting team to watch, and Andreas Anastasia with his speed, it's going to be interesting. But again, the big question is, goaltending. It's hard to judge them so far because they hadn't had much help over the past couple of years. But Mrazek's adequate. Soderblom, who knows, if he can step up if the team plays a little better in front of him. Defense is going to be the question. I think they got enough offense.
Chris, the Bears play tomorrow.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was such a heartbreaker. I mean, I've been listening to you guys the last few days, and there's nothing I can add that hasn't been said. But, I mean, that kid, he had such a great game, it feels, up until the last 5 minutes. But this one's on the coach. They should have just kicked that field goal. The defense can't do their job. That's on them. But to do it happen in the last 3 minutes, the fumble and then the interception, just crushed the poor kid. It was one of those games that could change everything for him, for his confidence. He finally, looked like the guy that they were hoping. And then that last 4 minutes was just a disaster. I felt terrible for him, but, move on and hopefully continue and build off it. But that was a tough one to watch at the end.
And losing a game in that fashion has left them with more rumors, the coach is getting fired. They're going to trade the team. I mean, it's one of those losses. And I guess it's because there were 10 last year and now there's 4. That you just feel like anything can happen. That this is at a point now where you're beyond desperate.
Yeah, well, I guess you hit the nail on the head. 14 in a row loss. It doesn't matter. Someone's going to have to pay. And like I said, I put that last game all on the coach. And they're playing Denver, who just got beat 70-20. So people are questioning that their defense was no good, but. It's tough, but I'm still going to stick with my Bears. They didn't cover, right? It was a push, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was. They might have won. I think at some shops it was 3.5.
Depending on what you got.
Yeah,
it was
depending
close.
on where you got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, God, I don't give them a chance with that. Who they're playing? KC, right?
Tomorrow they got Commanders. They're at Washington, D.C.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
Chico.
like I said, I'm sorry. All I can think of is Taylor Swift right now. It's crazy. What's going
What do you
on
think
here?
of that? That's pretty cool, huh? It's good for.
Oh my God, I don't even know. I mean, I didn't hear Taylor Swift before she came to Chicago, but it's awesome. This whole thing, and it's been great. I'm starting to like her. I haven't heard a song yet, but it's awesome. Yeah.
Great songwriter, Chelly. Did you have any experience? Ron Rivera at all back in the day? The coach of the Commanders?
Yeah. I've come across him over the years. Great guy. Like really, real serious, but very class act. Loved him. Yeah, he was a great bear.
Yeah, and again, of all the gin joints in all the world, you got to go into his. It just, I don't know. They got a really good defensive front, Chris, and it's just hard to imagine the beaten up offensive line being able to hold up. Maybe Tevin Jenkins comes back. That's been talked about on the outside. what do you expect? Are you going to make a wager on it? And obviously you're either on the Bears or you're off. If I remember,
I am not on the Bears. Unfortunately, this was after that. What happened? And then coming back from short rest. No, I don't think. One thing I did love is he started hitting Komet a little more and using him as an outlet, which he should. I mean, he's a safety valve for him. So if this first play is not there, just keep dumping it off to him. It works, and it makes it a lot easier on fields. But I can't bet on the Bears. I'm not going to bet against them, but I'm not taking them tomorrow.
I think it's smart, Chris. I think it's you're learning from the past.
From you guys. I'm listening to you guys. That's how I'm learning.
Good stuff. It's almost hockey season, so right around the corner.
Chris,
I can't wait.
Thanks for the time. We appreciate it, buddy. Great catching up with you.
All right, guys. Take care.
That is Chris Chelios. Oh, he's wonderful.
Next week, they drop the puck on the season. That's the biggest hope right now in Chicago sports, the fact that Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks start the season in 6 days. Other than that, Sox are retooling, rebuilding. The Cubs closing up shop. That was kind of a downer. And Steve Greenberg got a pretty good column in the Sun-Times this morning, kind of summing everything up and where we are in the city of sports woe.
I'm curious what when you look at Washington and you think about that team, there's an upside that Dan Snyder's not there, right? So
they got a boost.
It's almost safe to cheer for them again if you're a fan. Because
no doubt.
That guy
They've
just
got a
dragged
feel
them down.
of relief.
Yeah.
Commanders fans, longtime fans of the Washington football team, all those people that were kind of like, kind of looking through.
Yeah, like you're let out of prison.
Yeah, because Daniel Snyder is gone. And what a lift that must be emotionally for a lot of those fans.
312-644-6767. It's Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio, 6-7 The Score.
The Parkins and Spiegel Show on your ride home. Afternoons 2 to 6 on The Score.
Keying on if Flus should keep his job.
I don't think that Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles or the McCaskies are going to say, well, we've never done this before.
You never know what you're going to get on this show. Miss a little, miss a lot. That's what I'm trying to say.
Twitch stream suggesting an I'm a Fat Fish podcast coming up. I like this idea.
I don't know how to interview a fish.
Just make it up.
Who's going to voice the fish?
Somebody at our station.
I think you can do it, Layla.
What do fish sound like?
You could be the second guest on Between Two Fats.
I've wanted to be on the I'm Fat podcast for a while. I think I even asked about this in like 2018 or something.
You are not qualified.
I need you to find the actor who played Parkins, the Jedi. I know it was Y-Wing fighter. Was he in?
Gonna blow up the Death Star.
No, it's on Parkins. The photon torpedoes. It's a design flaw. Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
His real name is William Hootkins.
Fully operational.
That's a great name. And he won't be on because he's dead. He died in 2005.
Oh, the actor died?
Yes.
Parkins from Star Wars.
From Star Wars. Mob. Like I always wanted the I'm Fat podcast to have, the fat X-Wing fighter guy.
Oh my God, you lost me to Parkins from Star Wars.
Please make this personal.
this is a team that's going to come in and they're hungry to win. They're 0-4, they know it, but they have a very talented young quarterback who's dynamic and explosive. And last year he gave us hell. We can't allow that to happen. We've got to be disciplined. We've got to play our game. This is again a young team that's growing and developing. They were a couple of years back, and again, I like who their quarterback is. I really do. I think Justin's a heck of a man.
Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670. The Score. That is the voice of Ron Rivera. He is the head coach of the. Why are you laughing?
I'm just laughing. My headline from that is 85 Bear endorses Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, what are you supposed to say?
Just saying. He's the opposing coach tomorrow night, sure. But that is a full-fledged endorsement of Justin Fields from an 85 Bear.
Yeah, that is true.
True. You can't dispute that.
No, I'm not disputing it. I think.
Look, it's hard to find positive developments around here this week. That's one of them.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Listen, there might not be anybody happier to see Justin Fields tomorrow night than Ron Rivera. Especially in the fourth quarter. If it's a tight game.
Oh, boy, that is so mean.
Just saying.
That's mean.
It is a little bit.
But, if we could for a second talk about that, we went through the scoop and score, and we went through the interception at the end of the game. That awful the intentional grounding play, God, that was awful. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to pull out, you shouldn't try to get away, but don't throw that ball if you're that desperate. Take the sack. I don't
can't
want
do
to
that.
be.
You
just
cannot
can't
do that.
have that penalty, the loss of down. You can't have that happen.
You can't lose your composure to the point where you just think, "What am I going to do?" Oh, I'm panicking. I just throw it away. You have to understand the ramifications. And again, process that quickly enough to avoid that mistake, because that was a damaging mistake. And I think it was even more revealing than it was damaging, because you're looking for all kinds of progress. And that came at a bad time in the game. Your momentum had already slipped away, and then you felt like you weren't going to get it back.
No, that was just really a bad moment in that game. And you're absolutely right. I think that underscored that this whole damn thing is going the wrong way. It really did.
I also think it was interesting yesterday. We talk about what Luke Getsy did in doubling down on the 4th and 1 call, and people are tired of us talking about it. So am I a little bit, but that's okay. That aside from that, the way that he explained the fumble by Justin Fields and the way that he did not recognize the blitz quickly enough or do what he was supposed to do in that situation to protect the football, I thought was implicating the quarterback more than I expected from the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that's true.
And whether that's being just, plain spoken or real talk or however you want to describe it, it was candor that I don't know that everyone might have appreciated in that locker room. I don't know that, but it was very direct. And he essentially was saying, well, we ran that play earlier and he did what he was supposed to do, and it worked before. So when we did it again, he should have anticipated that. Well, really? I suppose. But the other thing is, you might want to wonder, remind him. It was a shared responsibility, but to hear from Luke Getsy yesterday was really little doubt who the offensive coaches held responsible for that turnover.
Yeah. I again, there were so many things. So many things had to go wrong to lose that game. You had such command of the game, and it took a series of errors, flat out errors, to lose that game. It took bad luck too. I mean, when you fumble a ball and it bounces to someone and the ball is oblong and it bounces funny, and it just happened to bounce the right way for
You're right.
The Saints. I keep calling them the Saints because the Broncos remind me of...
Because Sean Payton.
That's why.
That's the link. But you're right. But you know what? Good teams make their own luck. Not that the Broncos are a good team, but the Bears have not made their own luck, so they're susceptible to bad breaks and bad bounces like that would represent.
Yes.
And they're not able to overcome that. Why? Because they don't know how to win yet. They don't know how to seize the opportunity or to take advantage of, I don't know, a makeable field goal that gives you a lead with 2.5 minutes to go.
And the Bears needed to play better against those spare Bears. Damn it, I just did it
Stop
again.
Stop it. That never came up.
That never came
when
up.
Sean Payton was reminiscing about being in that locker room and after so many victories and coming home, the pride of Naperville and all those things, he didn't mention him being a spare Bear.
No. Dustin, do you recall when he was a spare Bear?
I do recall.
Yeah. Did you enjoy him as a spare Bear? Do you
I
remember
wasn't
him at all?
really watching as much at that point.
Did he mention Eastern Illinois? Did he reminisce about being a Panther?
I don't know if he did.
They're the Panthers, right?
Why is it that so many great people have come out of Eastern
That is
Illinois?
interesting. I know a lot of great Eastern Illinois graduates. Yes, it's quite a thing. But he didn't mention that, I think. Anyway, we digress.
Ryan Pace? Oh, that's not
exactly
the first
who
guy.
I was thinking of.
Yeah, no, Mike Shanahan might be the first one you think.
Ryan Pace.
Pride of Franklin Park.
Hey, is Ryan Pace part of the Falcon triumvirate or the brain trust that is endorsing Desmond Ridder?
No, they're desperately trying to trade for Justin Fields.
Exactly.
I think Pace is the guy that's whispering to ESPN.
You think that
to get that deal
is that
done.
why they had that long conversation this morning about the trade value of a Justin Fields? Hey, they got a 4th rounder for Trey Lance. Could you get for Justin Fields?
Yeah, I don't know. Not much.
I don't think that's
do
a
that.
I don't think
that's
that's a conversation
the way to go.
That's valid.
And I'm mad that we even kind of got into it. But Bigsy was asked a question, and he had it in his
I'm not mad that we
mailbag.
got into it. I mean, I think sometimes when things are out there, it's incumbent upon people who actually maybe
have an idea
to address it responsibly.
Yeah.
And responsibly, we can say it makes no sense right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
It's a non-starter.
And as we mentioned, you could trade everybody on the team, right? There are plenty of people that you could trade if you have made decisions that they're not coming back. I just wonder at what point does this get beyond kind of control of everybody?
Is it manageable? It's already kind of getting unwieldy.
It feels like it's unwieldy already.
Yeah.
It really does. It feels like because they lost that last game when they had a chance to win it, I think if they had won that game, all of this would be silenced. But the reality is that was the 4th straight loss to open the season. 14 if you go back to last year. Now you're looking at where the hell's the defensive coordinator? Did the coach not know what they were doing with the wide receiver who was secretly suspended without getting the league involved? He didn't know if he was there or not there. Oh, maybe he misspoke. They had to clarify that. These are all. It makes you wonder if he's got too much that he's doing that he can't follow, whether they're suspending someone, telling him not to turn up, or whether they're going to cut a guy.
It's a fair question, good criticism. I do wonder this. You have now let the situation get to, since he's still on the roster, he has not been deemed, he's not an injured reserve.
No.
He's not been suspended.
He's just not in the building.
He's making $170,000 this week to stay away from the facility.
Yeah.
That's good money a great gig if you can find it. I think that your reputation is damaged, but the fact is that they haven't done anything.
Do you think
from a roster point?
Honestly, do you think that he cares?
Absolutely.
Do you think he regrets his behavior?
Probably.
Okay.
But I'm projecting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Oh, I'd be.
Wouldn't any responsible professional regret being
I'd be so humiliated, so guilt-ridden, I mean, honestly, I regret even talking about it.
You'd be guilt-ridden going to the bank to cash your check. You're like, did I really earn this?
I have this institutional guilt that was beaten into me at a young age, and I mean that. The nuns slapped me around.
But we're projecting here. I don't know to what extent Chase Claypool feels responsible for what's happened to him this week or their response to him. My sense is if it's on brand, he probably feels like they overreacted. And he probably feels like, why did they punish me? Because I was right. And I got that a lot last week on social media when I said this is the right thing. People come at me and say, well, you know what? He has a point. He's not been used correctly.
Yeah.
He's been neglected in the passing game. They haven't got the most out of his potential. And I'm saying exactly right. I concur. Here. But you can't say that.
No, you can't say it.
You can't be the one pointing that out. you sound like a selfish malcontent when you do.
Yeah.
And there's no room for those in a locker room full of guys who are going through the same thing. They're not going to commiserate with you. They got their own problems. So just shut up and take it. And I think that's what you want to hear more often and not be a distraction for a team that can't afford one.
So help me out. Why is he still on the roster?
That's a baffling one because I don't know. Biggsy pointed this out yesterday. It was a great point. I thought before 3:00 they'd cut him so they don't have to pay him this week.
Yeah.
Why is he on the roster?
Is he going to be in the building on Friday?
It's hard to imagine after doing this and going down this road that they would welcome him back and give him another chance.
I'm sure they're absolutely shocked that he has zero trade value. But if he had any trade value, he'd be gone, don't you think?
Yes.
So here you are with a guy that you gave up again, what was effectively a number 1 pick, the 32nd pick in the draft. You gave that up for him, and now you can't move him, and now he's on your roster, but he's not invited into the building. I just don't know. I don't know how you change anything about that situation moving forward. I don't know what they're waiting on. Did they think if they cut him on Friday at 3:30 that it won't make the wire? Until
There's one
Monday?
conceivable answer. There's one conceivable answer that Ryan Poles still wants to see if they can salvage something out of Chase Claypool because they gave up as much draft capital as they did to get him, and that he feels like it would be an overreaction or letting his emotions take over if they would cut him in a kind of a fit of pique. It would be one of these reactions like, oh my gosh, I'm so mad at him. He's gone. And then you think like, what did we just do? We just basically sacrificed a first-round draft pick for a guy that we got mad at and cut.
So that would indicate, if that is the reason, or if that is the reasoning that
you're keeping him to justify your decision.
But that would then indicate you're keeping him. Do you believe there is a path back to the roster for this guy?
I think that pure speculation. I think if you ask the coaching staff and if you ask the front office, there would be two very maybe subtly different answers. The coaching staff would be, we're done with him. You know how bad he is in meetings that we evaluate. Do you know how much can you believe that he questioned us publicly? And the front office would be like, we're not really happy with him, but you know what? We think maybe with 12 games left, maybe we can still get something out of him because we gave up so much to get him.
You are paying him for 2 games that he didn't play, and you're not going to get rid of him? Like I don't understand. I think there's a mixed messaging here. If indeed there's a path back for him, which would seemingly, if you're waiting to see if you can get a trade, maybe someone gets hurt this weekend and then we can trade him, or he's back in the building and all is forgiven. There's got to be. It just seems like they got to make a decision on it. It's just weird that they don't want him around, but they haven't moved him off the roster
Saw
yet.
a report from somewhere yesterday that the Carolina Panthers are in the market for a veteran wide receiver because Bryce Young needs somebody to throw to or some help and direction in the building. And it briefly crossed my mind, but it was a fleeting thought. But if Chase Claypool were in a better headspace or had a better reputation maybe around the league, they could convince somebody like the Panthers to take a flyer on somebody who might help their passing game. But I don't think that's even conceivable because he's talked his way into this kind of no man's land.
Yes, this is my problem. If I'm the general manager there or anywhere and I'm interested in maybe signing the guy, don't I sign him off the street?
Yes.
He's not,
You don't give up anything.
I'll give you a 5th-round pick.
You won't give up anything.
Oh, no, wait. I'll just wait till you cut him because he's not even in your building.
Well, I'll give you $100 for if you give me a headache. No. Why would I give up anything? I could get a headache on my own.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's going to pay for Chase Claypool, and I think that he's going to have a difficult time reinventing himself in the league. There are a lot of good wide receivers. He has blown his opportunity, and good for Cole Kmet, his friend, his college teammate, who followed Matt Eberflus and said exactly the other day what Matt Eberflus should have said, is that sometimes in the league, you got to be an adult, you got to be a grown man, you got to be a professional, and you got to take what happens to you.
Let's try Don. Don's on the west side. Hey, Don.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. I just wanted to say, as far as with this, I'm a pessimist and an optimist when it comes to like the firing, because it's like, who do you bring in? You know, the optimism in me says, okay, there's change. It's like, okay, well, it's the change. I mean, you got to go through this all over again, and it's like, how many, careers and regimes do we have to go through to understand that it's probably not just that level, of a problem? Like, meaning, it doesn't just stop at the regime and the play on the field. It's like we haven't had no good consistent coaching since Dick Duran and Lovie Smith. So I think that you have to go a little bit, because the talent count. So, for example, let me bring this home and then listen. But it's like, okay, Mustafa, for example, now he's not great, but he's playing better elsewhere. And then you got Patrick at center now. So my thing is that a team problem, not recognizing talent to develop? Or is that just like what is that? Like, how do you explain that? That's an anomaly to me. So it's like, okay, either the owners aren't getting the right advice of who to pick, who to bring in, and they're steady bringing these regimes who's getting it wrong, or is it, where do we find fault at? Because it's like now it's just a cyclical thing that hasn't been broken. So I mean, that's why I say I'm both optimistic and pessimistic about that. I don't think that you fire anybody right now. I think that you play it out. Justin Fields has very low trade value right now because he can't pass. He's proven that he's just an athlete at quarterback. So, yeah, I don't know where you go with this. I just think that you mostly have to just wait it out. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks,
That's
Don.
great, Don. Always good calls.
Good
from Don.
calls, good perspective. I do feel kind of squeamish about the fact that we spent as long as we have this week talking about what I would have considered in August the nuclear options, the firing of the head coach, the trading of the quarterback, the things that really sound like outlandish talk radio topics that, frankly, in all honesty, objectively, are not outlandish sports radio topics. These are real considerations that the Bears at Halas Hall have to be discussing, or at least have in the back of their minds. If you're Kevin Warren, if you're Ryan Poles, if you're George McCaskey.
Well, here's the thing, David. I mean, let's just play it out. Just think logically about, let's say they get beaten badly. Let's say they decide they can't go on any longer. They just can't have this. What is their move? Like at that point, then you're going to see a news conference where you would presume that George will sit there and that Kevin Warren would be taking some questions, and that Poles would have to be involved in. And you would have to say why you chose to fire this guy, what has gone wrong to the point where it was not salvageable, and what your solution is. You're going to have to give a solution. Have they thought through? And I'm sure they have. If you're firing someone, you better know what the hell the next step is and why you're making it and what it means moving
I agree
forward.
with that totally. I mean, you have to have a contingency plan, and I know you have to have every step covered. But I'll say this, and I hope I don't regret it tomorrow. But I think that to me, like, if you lose badly, on Thursday Night Football, like Peter King suggested and speculated, if you lose badly, I think the toughest decision that they would have to make is explaining why they would keep him rather than launch him.
That's a really good – I mean, can you come out and say, look, it just got to a point where we couldn't keep him. We'll figure out moving forward what we're going to do. We haven't thought through what this means. We just don't want to see the guy anymore, and we don't want to hear him as much as you don't.
And what I mean is that if you lose your fifth straight game and your 15th over 2 seasons, then the easiest thing in the world to do is to fire the coach, is to buy yourself some time, is to maybe buckle to public pressure and to give the fans what basically everybody would want. Some sort of change, some sort of hope that's been vanished really quickly in Chicago. So the difficult thing would be if you do lose Thursday night and you maintain the status quo and don't explain why. That to me is what would be so frustrating for a Bears fan to go through. Everybody wants to hear them, do what I think sounds hard, but might be the easiest path out of this if you're Kevin Warren, if you're Ryan Poles.
like they're in such a trick bag. I get it. If they want to fire him, they should fire him. But I just don't know what the hell they're going to say about moving forward.
I don't know what they say, what you would trust.
This has been a disaster.
It has been.
This season, the way it started, the way they've played, they finally got a hint of hope against a terrible team, and they couldn't even win.
When you were losing last year, you had signs of progress, and you had the mini spurt from Justin Fields. This year, you've had really none of that. And speaking of guys, you talk. Don mentioned this about looking at Sam Mustipher, good example. But I'm looking at Mark Potash summed this up in the Sun-Times this morning. How about the Bears last in the league in sacks with 2, tied for 28th in takeaways, and then you look at guys like Khalil Mack has 6 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. Nick Morrow in the Eagles has 3 sacks and 1 forced fumble. Travis Gibson for the Titans has a sack and a forced fumble.
Travis Gibson.
And Mario Edwards for the Seahawks has a sack and a forced fumble. Those are guys who were here.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
312-644-6767. It's Mully and Haugh. What do you do? How do you handle it? What the heck's going on? Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 of the Score.
The Score is Chicago Sports. Chicago Sports is The Score. Thanks for keeping us the #1 and most listened to sports station in Chicago. Listen on your radio, laptop, mobile device through the Odyssey app, AUDACY, or tell your smart speaker to play 670 The Score. We're live and we're local. 670 The Score. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
This segment brought to you by Metra. The average annual commuting cost in Chicago, over $4,000. Parking, gas, maintenance, it all adds up. By taking Metra, you get that $4,000 back while commuting quickly and comfortably.
We decided that we are going to be, we've been given basically 5 minutes with Matt Eberflus to ask him any questions that he wants. And so
this is exciting.
Good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon, Matt. It's good to have you on the Circa Resort and Casino Hotline. Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, home of the world's largest sports book. I've also been told that Matt has promised to answer all of these questions 100% truthfully.
Oh boy,
which is exciting. So yeah, Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, really nice day today. Really nice. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Is your confidence shaken at all, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it, because it seems like are you unsure of yourself during these press conferences?
Meaning what?
Meaning, do you know what you're saying when your mouth is moving and you're saying words?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Matt, is this job too much for you?
What's that?
What I'm trying to say is all the duties that you have to do as a head coach, and now you're defensive coordinator. Is it too much for you?
Yeah.
It does seem like that
he's being honest. So your confidence is shaken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's a big admission. That's going to make a lot of news here.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Have you met Kevin Warren, Matt?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. So you don't even know who that is, right? Kevin Warren? You're not familiar with him? Yeah, Kevin Warren. He's the president. He's Ryan Poles' boss. He's your boss.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have family dinner, 5:30 to 6:30.
Family dinner. So you've broken bread with Kevin Warren.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Was that a Rosemary, by the way?
Yeah, he goes there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a lovely place.
It's fantastic.
Did you see our guy Shane Reardon there? Was he there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, he usually is.
That was one of the nights that he wasn't there.
All right. Well, I'm good.
All right. Well, you got yeah.
Meaning what?
I'm fine. I'm done asking questions.
No.
Okay. That's honest Matt Eberflus with us on the Circa Resort and Casino Hotline.
It's amazing that he was willing to do it. It really was. Like on a day when he already talked twice, as you mentioned, he still needed to get some more in.
Yeah. Do you feel like we have any more clarity at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
into the details of what all that happened. I was just simply just checking up on him as a friend and stuff like that. So.
That is the voice of Justin Fields. He was asked about whether or not he's been in touch with Chase Claypool. He last spoke to him on Saturday, so probably owes him a phone call. No, he doesn't owe him anything.
A little surprising it's been that long. Don't know the nature of the relationship, but I think that if you have somebody that was a teammate and went through that, it's a little surprising it's been that long. But
I suppose
maybe not.
But, Cole Kmet's his better friend, right?
We're assuming that they went to college together. Can Brian Kelly help?
They've known each other longer. Brian Kelly,
could he help?
Can't even help himself. For God's
oh my
sake.
Gosh! How about
we're not quitting on the season? Oh boy, your season's over, bud.
They've quit on you. You talk about a coach on the hot seat, a guy that under siege down in Baton Rouge. That's something. A lot of good college football stories going on that we don't talk about a lot, but I love following this season. It's a lot of fun. I always loved college football.
312-644-6767. We probably should have talked about Notre Dame's comeback and their victory. That was pretty spectacular to come back the way they did and win that game.
Sam Hartman gets it done. You talk about a quarterback that's resourceful. The big play of the game, he did a lot with his arm, but he did it with his legs. He got the first down, kept that drive alive. He rallied Notre Dame, and he's a guy that is having a very good year. They've got Louisville, followed by USC. Sam Hartman, 24 years old. It's like he has tenure at Notre Dame.
He looks like he's close to 30. I mean, there's something about the full beard and the whole.
He should have a shampoo deal too.
Yeah,
like an NIL shampoo deal, something like that.
He's a beautiful man. Let's get back to the phone lines. 312-644-6767. Jimmy Mack is on the road. Hey, Jimmy Mack.
What's up, guys? Thanks for taking the call. Yeah, I mean, to answer your question earlier, I think you absolutely have to consider if not just push forward with firing Flus already. That locker room, it's not just Chase Claypool. That locker room is in complete disarray. And when you have guys, even like your quarterback, openly speaking to the media about coaches not coaching them right. Jalen Johnson was on with Parkins, I think, and he called out Getsy for not using him right. I mean, it's not just Claypool. You've got ISO shots of players hanging their heads on the sideline every week, fans sharing stuff on social media about the sidelines and locker room being checked out. Like, it's not just Chase Claypool. It's the entire team, and they've showed up sloppy and disorganized and unprepared every single week, and it feels like that's the theme under Matt Eberflus. So if you lose twice in 5 days, even if it's in similar fashion and you're not blown out, you risk losing that locker room completely. You have to make a change just to keep the locker room together. And this is all I'll say about the Chase Claypool thing. Wide receivers are divas.
Yeah.
You guys seen what's going on with A.J. Brown and Stephon Diggs?
Yep.
Talking to the media, calling out their coaches. They handle it. You don't bench a guy because he says something that you don't like, especially when your quarterback is begging for him to be out on the field. Like, that right there, we've superseded Tressman levels
Jimmy
right
Mack,
there. This
hold
is
on
a
a
guy
second.
that can't coach.
Jimmy Mack, hold on a second, because I think you make some really good points, and I was with you up until the last point. I do want to ask you a question, though. You mentioned A.J. Brown. You mentioned Stephon Diggs. Yeah, they're divas, and they spoke up, and they dealt with it. But the one thing they offer that Chase Claypool hasn't, they're number one receivers. They are difference makers. Chase Claypool has done nothing in Chicago to warrant him speaking up about anything, right?
Nothing in Chicago, sure, right? If he's on another team, though, if he's on the Eagles, if they cut him and he walks and he goes to the Chiefs or he goes to the Chargers, or he goes back to the Steelers and they just steal him from us, right? Do you think that they're going to have any of these issues? I don't think so. I think I'm not saying that Claypool is right for what he's done. I just think you just don't have the coach or the culture in that locker room to not control, but like that. And I mean, if you look at even Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, those guys, they have attitudes. They make comments to the media, and you don't see the teams punishing those guys for that. They find a way to work with that guy. That's what a coach is supposed to do. You're going to get personalities. The fan base is saying that they should have taken Jalen Carter. What makes you think they could have handled Jalen Carter after you look at what they've done?
I agree with that, Jimmy Mack. Good phone call. I agree with that last point. But, Mully, I will still push back at this. Chase Claypool isn't in the same category with those other receivers that he mentioned that are guys that maybe have diva-like behavior on occasion. You can have diva-like behavior, and frankly, you can act however petulant you want to act. If you're a 1,200-yard, 10-touchdown guy that is a number one wideout and you're among the top 10 in the league at your position, you have a lot more license to say what you want.
I totally agree with that. Chris is on the road. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Your discussion before the break prompted a question that in my head, maybe the Bears are hanging on to Claypool because they're thinking a different coach might be able to coach him a little better as of Friday.
It's interesting. I wonder about that. I thinking them out loud. I don't think that's probably why they're keeping him, because that would be anticipating something. I don't think that's probably why. They probably anticipated there'd be more interest around the league. It was a wrong assumption, and now maybe they're trying to work it through something with the agent. Who knows? I don't think that they're keeping him because they're going to put him back in that locker room with a different coaching staff or a different head coach, and something's going to be different.
It's hard to imagine that, frankly. It's just, I mean, I don't know how, if that happens, then what does it tell you?
Let me ask you this, Mully. Given your experience, given our combined experience covering a lot of situations like this, typically, and trying to think of things in the past that mirror this, maybe people who cover the team hearing from the agent, but typically you do hear from the agent, or it wouldn't be crazy to hear from Chase Claypool's representative that either objects to this handling of his client, or you hear from the player in some capacity. We haven't heard that yet.
No, we have not.
Has that surprised you?
It makes me wonder what's happening behind the scenes. It makes me wonder if they're talking and he's been told that they're moving on and don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. Something's going on here, because you don't just have a guy not report. He's still getting paid. Are they bringing him back? That's the problem,
I don't think they're probably going to be able to bring him back. I can imagine that scenario.
That's what I'm saying. So
but I do wonder, and I guess I'm answering my own question. When you don't hear from an agent in this kind of situation, it reinforces the idea, or maybe the assumption, that, boy, he must have really had some behavioral issues that led to this, and this is understandable why the Bears would act like this, because if this were unjust, you'd be hearing about it.
Yeah.
Somebody would be complaining, whether it's the player or the agent. It sounds like the Bears might have been justified in acting this way because everybody had had enough.
All right, let's try Dino. He's in Mount Greenwood. Hey, Dino.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
My theory on Chase Claypool is just an issue of timing, right? You're not really installing a new game plan this week. I mean, what's to stop, the Commanders of putting them on their practice squad and just basically getting a sense of what Getsy's going to do. Now, I understand that, there's no secret of what the Bears are going to try to do because they're not that sophisticated, but we know that they think everything is a state secret. I think it could just be as simple as that. They're going to pay an extra $170,000 and just to keep his mouth shut, because there's no, I presume you guys know, there's no NDAs or anything like that would prohibit Chase Claypool from just telling anyone what the playbook is, right?
That's true. I wonder how big of a concern that is. I mean, it can't be ruled out, I suppose. There are all kinds of reasons that could contribute to why they still have him on the roster or as part of the organization. Because as mad as they sounded, or the response, it seemed like they've had enough. And it's just hard to envision bringing him back under those circumstances. Thanks for the phone call.
Thanks. Cash 45. We're going to close it out with Cash 45. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I like your program a lot. I was thinking that maybe looking at it from a legal point of view, maybe the Bears have got enough to sit this guy out, but they don't really have enough to fire him. Actually, what did he do that would cause the Bears to fire him? And if he gets fired, then he immediately can challenge it. Either through the Players Association or possibly an individual lawsuit. The Bears don't want to deal with that. Maybe they're trying to negotiate a more comfortable release of him by saying, hey, we'll give you a couple more grand. Let's call it a day. No lawsuits. And maybe that's the way they're looking at it.
Thanks, Cash. Appreciate the phone call.
Yeah.
I don't think a team needs a compelling reason to cut an underperforming player. And there's no doubt that he has been an underperforming player. Right?
Well, I mean,
you're talking about performance level, and if you have a standard and he's not meeting it, or off the field and he's not meeting it, you can act however you want.
Listen, you can cut anybody you want to cut
for whatever reason you choose.
But are you obliged to pay him $170,000 per game? Is there any way that they can get out of that little element of it? I'd be very curious to know if there's something going on.
What are the contractual guarantees in his deal? I don't know that.
Yeah, they have not suspended him. And I imagine if they had suspended him, you'd be hearing from the Players Association, you'd be hearing from the NFL. You know, they have handled this in a really weird manner. He's done something that they're dissatisfied with, and they've told him to stay away, stay out of the building.
The grievance would be more legitimate if he were actually producing at a high level on the field. Then it would be something that the Players Association could go, look what he's done. What are you thinking here? You know, the end would justify the means.
But you can't just suspend a guy because he badmouthed the coaches or because
but you can cut him.
You can cut anybody.
You can be inactive. That's all they're doing right now.
That's what they're doing is they're just leaving him as inactive.
That's why you can't call it a suspension.
No, but they don't want him around their building because they don't want his negativity, his whatever it is.
Well, that's the way it works, Mully. So that's why we're all assuming that he can't come back.
Yes.
Because this is, I don't want to say it's unprecedented. I don't want to say that because
it's 2 days. It's two games of telling a guy, hey, do us a favor.
Stay home.
Just don't even come into the building.
Addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
1 + 2 = 6. Well, life
turn
without
off his key card.
Yes, exactly.
He can't get into the.
We're better without Chase.
Security, turn his car off.
Yeah.
Tell him to stay out of here. That is really. I mean, how. I mean, wouldn't you feel awful if you got
It's a crossroads moment in your career if you're Chase Claypool.
God.
You've got to look yourself in the mirror and say, what did I do to put myself in this situation at this stage of my career?
Yeah, I'm at a point where I need to get a new contract. I'm at a point where I'm playing to make sure that I can get some money in free agency. I'm at a point where they won't even let me in the building to practice or to work out.
A winless team
nothing to do with
a bad offense has deemed me more of a problem than I'm worth. What does that say about the way I should respond to this as a professional?
It's a strange way of handling him, because if you're done with him, cut him. I don't understand. Are you honestly trying to figure out a way? And Bigsy said it. His value may be a swap of draft picks. Okay, I'll give you our 7th round pick. The problem is the Bears pick presumably fairly high in the draft. So your 7th round pick.
Right.
You'll have to give me a 6th round pick.
They're not going to get a draft pick.
Exactly.
If they bring him back, I will agree with you that this is a very strange way that I don't understand in terms of dealing with him. If they cut him eventually and he's not back in the building, I would think that I understand exactly why they played it this way. Even though they kept him on the roster maybe for one game too long, I'm not going to quibble about that if they eventually follow through and logically reach the next point and cut him. You got to cut him.
But
you don't sound convinced they're going to.
Well, there's part of me that thinks they're going to make him sit for 2 more weeks. I don't know why.
You can't keep him out of the building if he's still on the payroll.
I don't know
without having some sort of formal action. That's when that's when it gets messy. Don't make it messy. Cut him Friday.
Okay.
When you're firing your coach.
We fired the coach. We're willing we don't really have a plan moving forward.
Yeah.
But we got rid of that player cancer, that Chase Claypool.
You see the headline in the Tribune the next morning. Bears cut Claypool. Subhead, also fire Eberflus.
Is he the bigger headline?
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
what you're telling me? I like that.
Because that would be the surprise.
That's awesome. All right, we've got the
Dan and Lawrence.
Oh, we are. Okay, good. That was under question. I was told I'd get resolution.
They're in Waukegan. We are here. We will talk to them when we come back.
And we're just gonna kind of yell at it. I mean, we're gonna
So they can hear us
Yeah,
over all the noise.
Over the water of
Yeah.
the lake. We'll go out there. No, we'll talk to them properly on the radio. We'll do that next. It's Mully and Haugh on The Score.
Hey, it's Dan Bernstein. And I'm Lawrence Holmes. You can check me and Dan Bernstein out every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until 2.
From the Circa Sportsbook in Waukegan, we will be talking to Mike Florio at 11, Adam Haugh at 11:25, high noon, 11:40, WGN.